In a desolate, shadowed place, amidst scattered skulls and scurrying rats, a mysterious figure stood, cloaked in darkness and wielding a blade. A chilling thought echoed. They keep dying, one after another. Who in the world are you? Far removed from such grim thoughts, a hand held a smartphone, displaying a dating application named Anonymous, its screen filled with various profiles. Below, students moved through a bustling campus, unaware of the digital world held in the palm above them. This was the Grand XX University, located in T Ward, Tokyo, a prominent institution boasting over 30,000 students, its gates opening to a world of academic pursuit and social interaction. Within its sprawling grounds, 2 months into the semester, the number of couples openly flirting had noticeably increased, filling the air with chatter and lighthearted footsteps. Amidst this burgeoning romance, a young woman named Tsubasa mused to her friend about her desire to find a boyfriend, though no one had approached her yet. Nearby, a young man, Sasuke, sat alone, his expression deeply troubled, as if burdened by unseen anxieties. He overheard Tsubasa's conversation, particularly her friend's comment about someone being creepy, and internally acknowledged the sentiment, knowing it likely referred to him. Tsubasa, meanwhile, agreed to let her friend sit with her. Despite his outward appearance, Sasuke was engrossed in his phone, blushing as he admired a profile on the Anonymous app, murmuring about the girl being an angel and having already found paradise. Suddenly, his phone was snatched from his hands. His friend, a boisterous young man, grinned widely as he held up the stolen device, calling out to Sasuke and asking how things were going. Another friend stood silently behind him. The grinning friend then examined the phone's screen, displaying the Anonymous app, and questioned if it was a dating application. He then turned to Sasuke, laughing mockingly and declaring him too ugly for such an endeavor, leaving Sasuke looking utterly mortified and exasperated. He stammered, trying to deny the obvious, his face flushed with embarrassment as he insisted that his friends had it all wrong and he couldn't hear their accusations. His friends, however, continued their relentless teasing, laughing as they demanded he introduce them to the girl from the dating app, while he desperately pleaded for them to return his phone. He lunged for his phone, but his friend playfully kept it out of reach, mockingly calling him Mr. Unpopular. Frustrated, he then dashed out of the classroom, leaving his friend to wonder about his sudden departure. Seeking refuge in a bathroom stall, he tried to compose himself, muttering that he was fine despite the humiliation. Just as he began to calm, his phone suddenly rang, startling him. The sudden ring caused him to flinch, and with a clumsy movement, he accidentally dropped his phone directly into the toilet, his face contorting in a mix of shock and despair. He stared at the submerged device, a single tear welling in his eye, before hesitantly reaching into the water to retrieve it, a look of utter defeat on his face. Meanwhile, elsewhere on campus, Tsubasa walked along, a serene expression on her face, seemingly unaware of the chaos Sasuke had just endured. It was likely she was also attending the same lecture. Back in the present, Sasuke smiled faintly as he looked at Tsubasa's profile on the Anonymous app, acknowledging that they were still only friends, a connection he had made through the application. 2 months prior, Sasuke had been deeply frustrated with the app, constantly swiping through profiles of attractive girls, hoping for a match. Despite his efforts, he received none, lamenting his lack of success. As he lay in bed, a notification sound broke the silence. To his astonishment, the app displayed a match notification. He quickly opened the chat, discovering it was Tsubasa, and was further surprised to learn she attended the same university as him. He continued his conversation with Tsubasa on the app, discussing their university and classes. He found her incredibly easy to talk to, noting her energetic demeanor, and considered sending a picture of himself, albeit with his nose covered. Tsubasa, for her part, responded with a soft giggle. Moments later, he received a reply from her, his heart pounding with an unexpected sense of destiny, as if he had found the girl he was meant to be with. Meanwhile, Tsubasa lay comfortably on her bed, a faint smile playing on her lips as she thought Sasuke was interesting. She then sent him a picture of herself, revealing her appearance. His heart thumped wildly as he gazed at her picture. Though her face was partially obscured, he found her undeniably cute. A wave of doubt washed over him, questioning if it was a trap and why such a cute girl would be interested in him. But he quickly resolved to take this chance seriously. Since that day, he and Tsubasa had been talking regularly. She proved to be an invaluable resource, sending him answers for a constitution exam, which he aced with a perfect score. Later, she offered study advice, mentioning her location in the library. He realized that conversations with Tsubasa always led to positive outcomes, even resulting in cookies. He blushed, overwhelmed by her kindness, thinking that Tsubasa truly was an angel, always so nice and full of good advice. However, the tone of their conversation shifted when Tsubasa messaged him, asking for advice. She explained that earlier in the lecture hall, some annoying guys had taken her phone. She expressed her horror at the situation, revealing that they had been bullying her for a while and that she wished they would die. She added that they had also been trash-talking the app they used. Sasuke agreed, finding the situation incredibly annoying. He mentioned that some awful girls were also speaking ill of the app. He reassured her that he would keep their conversation safe until the very end, expressing a quiet wish. Tsubasa, her face obscured by a censor bar, responded with a chilling suggestion, asking how he would kill them. Tsubasa had asked Sasuke how he would kill her tormentors. His response was a chilling fantasy. Some would regret their misdeeds and hang themselves out of guilt, while another, Nishida, would be run over by a train. Her reply came swiftly, a message on the Anonymous app, expressing amusement at his creative and genius ideas. Sasuke, however, typed a more measured response, suggesting that since Nishida had hurt other girls too, it would be good to stop such harassment. She continued to praise him, remarking on his enduring care for others, even those who were cruel to him, calling him wonderful. Susuk, his face flushed with a mix of surprise and delight, clutched his phone, internally exclaiming that she was the best and calling out her name. Tsubasa then sent another message, confessing that his concern for other girls made her a bit jealous. This admission sent Susuk into a flurry of excitement, his face reddening further as he thought about how cute Tsubasa's jealousy was. Later, in the school restroom, he washed his hands, still lost in thought, wishing he could meet her already, yet also acknowledging that there was no need to rush. As he walked with his friends, he smiled to himself, convinced that Tsubasa was somewhere nearby, perhaps even in Auditorium A, where he now stood. He then entered a bustling classroom, filled with students, and there, amidst the crowd, was Tsubasa, looking at her phone, and the blonde girl with the eye patch, confirming his suspicion. Tsubasa was indeed in this very classroom. He muttered to himself, wondering if Tsubasa was truly present in his classroom. Her messages had hinted at her proximity, and he felt compelled to try and find her. Suddenly, he gasped, his eyes widening as he noticed a girl with long pigtails react to something nearby. Could this be her? He recognized the girl as Haruka-chan, a well-known idol. The realization made him question again. Could this famous figure truly be the Tsubasa he knew from their anonymous conversations? She, however, seemed to notice his discomfort. Sweating profusely from the heat, she offered him a drink, suggesting it would help him cool down. His mind then conjured an image of her at home, playfully exclaiming about an unfair move while engrossed in a game. Meanwhile, back in the classroom, he smiled to himself, lost in thought. The blonde girl and Haruka-chan observed him, exchanging glances and wondering what was amiss with him. Suddenly, the blonde girl's attention shifted. She confronted another dark-haired classmate, demanding she move out of the way. As the classmate looked startled, the blonde girl internally wondered if this new girl could be Tsubasa. He watched the blonde girl's aggressive demeanor, quickly dismissing the idea that Tsubasa, whom he believed to be an angel, could possess such a harsh personality. Yet, a moment later, he found himself reconsidering, his gaze falling upon the blonde girl once more as he wondered if she might be Tsubasa after all. His search for Tsubasa continued as his eyes drifted to two other girls, and he pondered if either of them could be the one he sought. Susuk was still searching, his thoughts drifting to another potential candidate. She sat quietly, her long dark hair falling around her as she read a book, seemingly oblivious to his scrutiny. He could no longer bear the uncertainty. Lying back, a frustrated sigh escaped him as he declared his inability to endure the situation any longer. Moments later, he confronted a classmate, Mura, who sported a casual hoodie and a cheerful demeanor. Susuk, looking somewhat suspicious, demanded to know why Mura was grinning, then revealed his desperate search for Tsubasa-chan. Mura, surprised, asked if she was in their class, admitting he didn't really know her. Mura then pointed out that Susuk had been talking to Tsubasa for 2 months already, suggesting he simply invite her to hang out. Susuk acknowledged the logic, his expression thoughtful. Taking Mura's advice, Susuk decided to try inviting her. His phone displayed a messaging app, showing a profile simply labeled Anonymous with a skull icon. Meanwhile, the blonde girl, Anonymous_girl_1, also held her phone, composing a message. She proposed a meeting, noting they had been talking for a while and even attended the same university. The recipient of the message, whose hand was visible clutching a phone, responded with hesitation. They found the idea embarrassing and asked if they could wait a little longer before meeting. Back with Susuk, he reassured Mura, who had inquired about his well-being regarding those guys, that the issue would be resolved soon enough. He smiled confidently, still holding his phone. Despite his earlier confidence, Susuk then pleaded desperately, holding his phone high, declaring he would do anything to meet Tsubasa-chan. Mura watched him, remarking on his desperation. He found himself on a deserted train platform, the silence broken only by his own internal complaint that class had been utterly boring. As he stood there, a girl passed by, her dark hair with a striking light streak catching his eye. He noticed her attire, a dark jacket over a light top and short skirt, and a sudden, unsettling thought struck him. Those clothes looked like Tsubasa's. Just then, with a swift, brutal motion, she shoved a man standing near the edge of the platform. The man tumbled onto the tracks, his eyes wide with terror as the screech of an approaching train filled the air. The girl stood impassively on the platform, looking down at her victim. Moments later, the train roared past, and a sickening crunch echoed through the station. Susuk watched in horror as the man's body was struck, a spray of blood splattering across the tracks. A collective gasp rose from the few other commuters, one exclaiming that someone had been hit. Susuk could only stare, a chilling question forming in his mind. Was he dead? His mind raced, trying to process the horrific event. Was it an accident, or had the man been pushed? Then, a more terrifying thought surfaced, a vision of the girl in the dark hoodie. Did Tsubasa push him? The implication sent a cold dread through him. Asterisk had his desperate search, his relentless pursuit, somehow driven her to this? Had he made her do that? Asterisk. Around him, other commuters reacted with shock and disbelief, one muttering, "You're kidding me." As the reality of the tragedy settled upon them, still reeling from the gruesome sight, Susuk's gaze darted around, his brow furrowed with a mix of fear and renewed urgency. He had to make sure. He had to find her. Where was that girl? The station, once quiet, now teemed with students, a bustling crowd making it difficult to discern any single face. Among the throng, Haruka and other classmates were also searching, their expressions worried. They discussed Tsubasa-chan, noting her absence and speculating that she might have disappeared into the crowd, perhaps even having taken off her jacket to alter her appearance. She was simply not there. He stared forward, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and disbelief, sweat beading on his brow. The weight of what he had witnessed, the horror of the train tracks, pressed down on him. Amidst the bustling crowd, he desperately scanned the faces, a single, agonizing question echoing in his mind. Which one of these strangers could possibly be Tsubasa-chan? Later, standing alone in a dimly lit corridor, the noise of the city fading, he whispered to himself that he should simply go home, a futile wish to escape the unfolding nightmare. Yet, a part of him refused to accept the truth, clinging to the desperate hope that the girl at the station was not Tsubasa, that Nishida's death was merely a tragic coincidence, a terrible mistake. As these thoughts consumed him, his phone began to ring, a jarring intrusion into his denial. The ringing persisted, and when he looked at the screen, a chilling message appeared. Hey, look at this, followed by another. I took care of Suzuki-kun's problem. The accompanying image was a grotesque sight, a severed head, lying on the train tracks, undeniably the victim from the station. A guttural cry of horror escaped him as he clutched the phone, the relentless ringing echoing his internal torment. Another message flashed across the screen, a sickeningly sweet inquiry. Thank goodness. Right, Suzuki-kun. His eyes widened in terror as he saw a hand, stained with blood, reaching out from the side of the screen, seemingly belonging to Tsubasa. The messages continued to flood in, a torrent of twisted affection. I want to meet you soon, Suzuki-kun. I tried my best. Praise me. I made you happy, right? Tsubasa-chan really did it. Overjoyed, aren't you happy? The horrifying truth solidified in his mind. Tsubasa-chan was indeed the culprit. A primal scream tore from his throat as he brought his phone down with crushing force, shattering it against the ground. That was the day, he realized, he started living in hell, having met his fated partner, a truly unforgivable evil. A young man stood alone beneath a vast, empty sky, a peculiar, shimmering ring hovering high above the distant buildings. The air itself seemed to hum with an unspoken tension, hinting at a fated match that would soon reveal a demonic murderer, promising a chapter full of twists. His eyes, wide behind his glasses, betrayed a profound sense of shock and unease, beads of sweat tracing paths down his temple. The following day, the imposing school building stood under a cloudy sky, a stark contrast to the previous day's ominous celestial ring. Inside the school, a palpable tension filled the air as students whispered amongst themselves. One girl intently scrolled through her phone, while others reacted with gasps and covered mouths, some even shedding tears. The hushed conversations and nervous glances permeated the classrooms, creating an atmosphere of widespread unease. As the day progressed, a pair of heavy boots slid across the polished floor, marking the arrival of someone new. He entered a classroom, immediately becoming the focal point of the incessant chatter. Students turned their heads, their whispers growing louder, their gazes fixed upon him as he stood amidst the swirling rumors. His eyes widened further in alarm as a girl, holding up her phone, showed him a photo of what she described as the accident, her expression one of disgust. He recoiled, his hand instinctively covering his mouth, his mind racing. They were discussing the incident involving Tsubasa-chan, and a wave of panic washed over him. He questioned what he should do, wondering if he should confide in someone about the unsettling events. Yet, a chilling realization stopped him. He could not speak, for if he made a mistake, Tsubasa-chan might kill another person. His thoughts conjured images of a mangled train, two shadowy figures, and Tsubasa herself, her face twisted into a sinister smile, her hands stained with blood. As he walked away, his back to the class, a student held up a phone displaying a group chat, showing his own image. Another student, recognizing him, exclaimed in surprise, asking if he was the guy in the photo. Whispers spread through the school halls, one student suggesting that Nishida, who was involved in the incident, might have been messed with by someone. Her companions reacted with shock and disbelief, exclaiming that such a thought was messed up and impossible. Overhearing the hushed conversation, Kaido felt a wave of dread wash over him as he realized they suspected him of involvement. The weight of their unspoken accusations pressed down on him, his mind racing with questions about whether Nishida truly took his own life or if something more sinister had occurred, and if he himself was now a target of suspicion. His anxiety mounted, a cold sweat beading on his brow as he worried about the potential discovery of his messages with Tsubasa-chan, knowing it would only deepen the trouble he was in. Suddenly, a hand patted his shoulder, startling him and pulling him from his spiraling thoughts. As he was startled, Suzuki greeted him casually, observing that Kaido looked kinda down and asking what was troubling him. Suzuki, noticing Kaido's distant gaze, inquired why he was spacing out, calling him by his surname, Aniray. Then, a realization dawned on Suzuki, as he recalled Kaido's plan to meet up with Tsubasa-chan yesterday, asking if it had gone well. As Kaido stood stunned by the sudden question, Suzuki showed him his phone, displaying a social media profile with numerous messages, remarking on how popular Tsubasa seemed to be, while Kaido internally lamented installing the app and agreeing to the meetup. He tried to deflect Suzuki's teasing, denying any concrete plans with Tsubasa, while Suzuki and Girly listened. Internally, Kaido worried about angering Tsubasa, knowing he couldn't afford to make her upset. Moments later, the weight of his predicament crushed him. He stared at his phone, a look of sheer terror on his face, realizing he could not delete something crucial and that the situation had become dire. As Kaido grappled with his fear, the school environment offered no respite. In class, a student, Girl B, loudly announced a shocking piece of news. Futami had hung himself yesterday. Kaido and Sasuke listened intently. Other students, including Girl A, Girl C, and Girl D, reacted with gasps and disbelief, questioning the details. The grim report continued, revealing that Futami had been found hung by his neck in his home, but with a disturbing number of stab wounds on his body, leading to speculation that it might be a homicide, not a suicide. The horrifying details sent a jolt through Kaido, who clutched his phone, his mind racing. He muttered in disbelief, connecting this new death to Nishida's, wondering if it was even possible for two people to die on the same day under such suspicious circumstances. His eye, wide with terror, reflected the cracked screen of his phone. His finger hovered over Tsubasa's profile on the anonymous app, a chilling realization dawning on him. A scream tore from Kaido's throat as Tsubasa suddenly appeared, cloaked in a dark hoodie and holding an umbrella. She calmly declared that she had dealt with the other one that was bothering him, her words a cold confirmation of his worst fears. As Tsubasa stood menacingly, Kaido's phone screen shattered, mirroring his own broken composure. He stared at the damage, a single, expletive thought escaping him as he realized Tsubasa was truly responsible for the violence. Overwhelmed by the horrifying truth, Kaido broke down, tears streaming down his face. His mind reeled with a torrent of past messages and rumors. Complaints about Shimada, Kondo-san's injury, Professor Tanada's advances, Owagami's false accusations, and Nomura being the worst. The weight of these dark secrets and events crushed him. Meanwhile, Tsubasa, still shrouded in her hoodie, turned her attention to Sasuke. She calmly stated that he had finally read her messages, then revealed she had been watching him all day, questioning why he seemed so worried and if something else was bothering him. The chilling message from Tsubasa, "I will fix it for you," dripped across the shattered screen of Kaido's phone, accompanied by a final, ominous beep. He stared at the broken device, his eyes wide with terror, a silent gasp escaping his lips as the full weight of Tsubasa's threat settled upon him. Moments later, Sasuke approached, placing a hand on Kaido's shoulder and asking what was wrong, startled by Kaido's sudden outburst. Kaido, still reeling, instinctively tried to hide the phone, urging Sasuke not to look. Sasuke's eyes widened in shock as he glimpsed the screen, his expression shifting from concern to horror before he abruptly slapped the phone from Kaido's grasp. His gaze, now intense and probing, fixed on Kaido as he demanded confirmation. The message, he suspected, had come from Tsubasa. Sasuke pressed him further, asking if he knew something, urging him to speak. Kaido, overwhelmed, wrestled with the decision of what to reveal, wondering if he should tell Sasuke everything. A short while later, the two sat in a quiet hallway. Kaido slumped on a bench, lost in thought, while Sasuke retrieved a drink from a nearby vending machine. Sasuke returned, offering Kaido a drink to help him calm down, then pressed him again about the message, asking what was happening. Kaido, accepting the drink, confirmed Sasuke's suspicion, admitting it was probably Tsubasa. Reflected in the can, Kaido's face was etched with fear as he confessed the horrifying truth. Tsubasa had killed both Nishida and Futami, and he believed it was because he had spoken to her. Sasuke reacted with disbelief, questioning the nature of such a claim. Kaido continued, explaining that he had matched with Tsubasa on the anonymous app around the start of the semester, and that 2 months prior, a girl he liked had started dating someone else, implying a connection between these events and Tsubasa's actions. Still reeling from his confession, Kaido's mind drifted to a past encounter. He recalled a girl with a bright, yet somewhat strained, smile who had confided in him, admitting she was really bitter. He had offered a simple, quiet acknowledgement. His thoughts returned to the present, as he continued to explain to Sasuke how he had complained to Tsubasa-chan about the guy who had taken the girl he liked, wishing he would fall down the stairs and break his leg. Sasuke, visibly disturbed, remarked on the creepiness of such a wish, while Kaido's memory showed a bloodstain on a set of stairs. He then revealed the chilling truth. For some inexplicable reason, Tsubasa-chan had granted most of the wishes he had made. He questioned if the guy had actually injured himself, a thought confirmed by the image of bandaged feet, implying the wish had indeed come true. Overwhelmed by the horrifying implications, he frantically denied any malicious intent, pleading for belief. He insisted he never thought such things would actually happen, clarifying that his wishes were usually trivial, like wanting to know exam answers or hoping not to encounter annoying classmates. The weight of his unwitting complicity crushed him. He stammered, realizing he couldn't possibly report this to the police. There was no way he could explain such an unbelievable chain of events. His mind then shifted to another memory, a fleeting glimpse of a girl from behind, her form indistinct, yet somehow significant in his troubled thoughts. Back in the present, he continued his confession to Sasuke, detailing how he had badmouthed the anonymous users on the app, wishing they would drop dead. He then connected this to the grim reality. Nishida and Futami had indeed died. Sasuke listened intently, his expression unreadable, processing the horrifying implications of Kaido's story. A heavy silence hung between them as he absorbed the full weight of the confession. Breaking the silence, Sasuke finally spoke, his gaze sharp. He pointed out the chilling paradox. The girl Kaido had met on a dating app was now killing people for him, yet Kaido still didn't even know her true identity. Kaido's eyes widened in shock and dawning horror. The realization that he was being tasked with finding someone whose identity was a complete mystery, despite her deadly actions, left him utterly bewildered. He stood amidst a group of students, his face etched with anxiety as one of the girls, her blonde hair tied in pigtails, vehemently declared that there was no way she could do what was asked. Kaido remained silent, his brow furrowed in deep thought. Still searching for answers, he walked through a large auditorium with Sasuke. who inquired if he recognized anyone resembling Tsubasa among the many students. Kaido admitted he didn't even know what she looked like, prompting Sasuke to suggest they check the classrooms instead. As they continued their search, they observed several girls, trying to match them against the few known details about Tsubasa. One girl couldn't drink coffee, another was too small, a third wasn't Tsubasa either, a fourth didn't wear glasses, and the last simply didn't feel like Tsubasa. Each observation brought them no closer to an answer. With their initial attempts proving fruitless, Sasuke pressed Kaido for any other clues. Kaido could only recall one specific detail. Tsubasa was taking one of Professor Kimura's classes. This new information sparked a realization in Sasuke. He reasoned that if Tsubasa was indeed taking one of Kimura's classes, she must be in the sociology department, as only students from that major typically enrolled in those courses. He noted that different majors often had different class schedules. He further elaborated on the logistical challenges, explaining that students from their department generally lived in the same ward, and different university faculties often had entirely separate campuses. Despite the difficulties, Sasuke proposed a methodical approach. Even if they couldn't spot her directly in class, they should be able to identify Tsubasa-chan by meticulously checking the class enrollment lists. The weight of the task settled heavily upon Kaido. He swallowed hard, a bead of sweat tracing his temple, as he voiced his deep uncertainty, questioning if they could truly find Tsubasa-chan. Sasuke, seemingly undeterred, began to walk away, his footsteps echoing with a determined rhythm. Kaido watched him, a sudden gasp escaping his lips as Sasuke remarked that searching through all enrolled students would take an immense amount of time if they only had such limited clues. Then, a new thought struck Kaido, a forgotten memory resurfacing. He called out to Sasuke, declaring that there was someone else he wanted him to meet. Sasuke, surprised, realized he had completely forgotten about that person. He considered the person he had just recalled, realizing that someone like her might possess the insight to uncover Tsubasa's true identity. With a determined step, he approached a door, his hand reaching for the handle. He paused at the threshold, finding a young woman inside. He tentatively asked if she was Kokushu-san, as she slid a book across a table. She confirmed her identity, her gaze still on her book, and offered to help him. He explained that he wished to consult with her about something important. He hesitated, looking down, as she asked if he was searching for something specific. He affirmed that he was, admitting that it felt inappropriate to ask such a thing of someone he had just met, yet he needed to know if something was troubling her. She reassured him, stating that it was acceptable because she already knew of him. The chronicler pondered the identity of this girl Kaido had met while searching for Tsubasa. The search for Tsubasa-chan continued, as the girl they encountered while looking for her seemed to hold crucial information. This was the third chapter of the dating app suspense story, Tsubasa-chan, You're My Killer Match. The narrative delved deeper into the mystery, opening Chapter 3, The XX Nobody Knows, pinned by Fukuoka Ryona. Suddenly, Kaido's expression shifted to one of profound surprise, a quiet huh, escaping his lips. He pondered why this girl, Kokushu, knew him, recalling that the first he had ever heard of her was when Mirai mentioned her name. Kokushu, with a gentle smile, stated that she always saw him with Mirai, then innocently inquired about Mirai's whereabouts. A chilling realization began to dawn on Kaido, his eyes widening in distress as he wondered if she could beat Tsubasa-chan. Just then, Sasuke appeared, apologizing to Kokushu for calling her so suddenly, his presence adding another layer of confusion to Kaido's already troubled mind. Sasuke then leaned in, whispering to Kaido that he had been worried and watching from the sidelines, despite telling him to go alone. Kaido, still reeling from his suspicions, could only listen as Sasuke explained his unexpected presence. Both Kaido and Sasuke averted their gazes, a palpable awkwardness hanging in the air, while Kokushu, seemingly oblivious, smiled and asked what was wrong. Sasuke, taking a serious tone, then turned to Kokushu and directly asked her if she had ever used one of those dating apps, acknowledging that the question might sound strange. She blushed slightly, her expression a mix of surprise and confusion, as she stammered a denial and inquired why he would ask such a thing. She confirmed she did not use anonymous applications, prompting Mirai to reassure Kaido that she was safe. This realization led Kaido to believe that if she truly avoided anonymous applications, then she could not beat Tsubasa-chan, and their immediate situation might be safe. Yet, Kaido still felt a need to speak with her, approaching her with Mirai to explain that they had something important to ask. He knew he could not discuss the sensitive details of their predicament in such a public place, but he desperately needed to find someone, wondering if she possessed the insight to assist them. Sensing the gravity in his words, she inquired about this someone he sought and the nature of the things that had transpired. Understanding the need for discretion, she led them away, suggesting they continue their conversation outside. As they moved, Kaido's thoughts raced, consumed by the urgent need to locate Tsubasa-chan before she could claim another victim. He harbored a growing suspicion that Kokushu, with her unique perspective, might hold the key to identifying Tsubasa-chan. The night had fully descended upon the school grounds, casting long shadows across the buildings and pathways. Once settled on a bench outside, Kaido finally articulated the dire situation, explaining his desperate desire to find the mysterious girl before she could cause further harm. He offered a hesitant apology for burdening someone he had only just met with such a grave request. She listened intently, her hand clenching her skirt as a quiet understanding settled upon her. She looked down, her expression somber, and asked if he had forgotten about a particular day, reminding him that they had discussed it before. Moments later, Sasuke gently pushed her shoulder, interrupting the conversation to ask Kaido what he meant by his earlier statements. Kaido appeared startled by the sudden interjection. Sasuke then turned to Kaido, remarking that Kokushu was always being asked by the professor to collect submissions and apologized for being somewhat out of it lately, attributing his forgetfulness to various things. Kaido, however, quickly denied being the one asked for submissions. Kokushu, now focused on the task at hand, inquired if Kaido knew anyone who matched Tsubasa's description, listing several names like Shiiki Saki, Seiya Megumi, Tokugane Rika, and Takahashi Mihiro, suggesting he might know everyone in that particular class. She paused, deep in thought, admitting that she wasn't entirely sure if there was anything else she could recall that might be helpful. Kaido clenched his fist, a resolute expression on his face, affirming his determination to find Tsubasa. He realized their current knowledge was limited to her attending the university, and the most effective strategy would be to approach people in her classes and engage them in conversation. Kokushu acknowledged the difficulty of their situation, suggesting that for now, all they could do was organize the information they already possessed. She then pulled out a tablet, offering to help as much as she could and asking Kaido to provide her with all the details of the conversations he had with Tsubasa. Kaido looked away, a thoughtful expression on his face, as he admitted that they hadn't really discussed anything of significant importance. He elaborated, explaining that their interactions were mostly small talk, simple questions like, "How was class?" or "Where did you go after school?" He recalled a time when Tsubasa was with him every day and how he felt during those moments. He remembered smiling as he looked at a message from Tsubasa-chan, who had sent a picture of a cute Loco Moco don she had made, prompting him to try making it himself. Suddenly, his expression twisted into one of deep anguish, his eyes wide with a painful realization. He questioned why he was ever happy then, repeating the word in despair. A memory flashed. A hand, presumably Tsubasa's, reached out, while another hand held a book, suggesting a past connection or a plate. Kokushu, observing him, asked if he was all right, noting that his face had become quite frightened. He confessed his fear, believing Tsubasa-chan was dangerous and would kill not only the girls he had complained about, but also others she was jealous of. He sweated, overwhelmed by the thought. Kokushu considered his words, concluding that Tsubasa-chan was simply being possessive, which explained her jealousy. He, with a determined look, stated that he must find her and stop her soon. She then suggested practical steps for their search, like asking around or looking in Tsubasa's classes. He turned to Sasuke, his expression hesitant, as he began to reveal something. He explained to Sasuke and the other girls that he had always wondered what kind of person Tsubasa was and had tried to look for her before, but no one had ever seen her. He had just expressed his frustration that no one seemed to know Tsubasa, and now, Kokushu pondered his words, a thoughtful expression on her face. Her brow furrowed slightly as she repeated his sentiment, questioning internally if it was truly possible that no one knew the girl he spoke of. Kaido, observing her, asked what she meant by her reaction. She responded that she knew of an incident that might be related, and with a series of taps, she began to operate a tablet. With a swift motion, she presented the tablet to Kaido and Sasuke, revealing its contents to them. The screen displayed a chilling news report detailing a series of serial killings, with headlines screaming about a Metropolitan Police investigation into serial killings and stalking a male student, indicating similar cases across other prefectures. Kokushu explained that the killer was nicknamed Girl Nobody Knows, a figure whose actions had shocked the entire country. The culprit, she continued, was an accomplice related to a school, but no one had ever seen her before. She emphasized the striking similarity of the case to Kaido's situation, noting that the culprit had killed classmates who were bullying the boy she liked, and that this was a serial murder case at XX Municipal High School. The flashback image on the tablet depicted the girl with a menacing smile, holding a boy, as the narration explained that she had proceeded to kill his friends, family, and teachers, one by one, in order to isolate him. She was described as extremely possessive. Sasuke and Kaido stared at the tablet in horror, a dawning realization spreading across their faces. Kaido stammered, questioning if this meant Tsubasa was this girl nobody knows. The implication struck Kaido with profound shock, his eyes wide behind his glasses, a look of utter disbelief and terror etched upon his features. Suddenly, his phone screen, now visibly cracked, displayed a new message from an anonymous sender to Sasuke, asking, Hey, Sasuke-kun, what's the deal with this Mirai friend of yours? Is he bothering our relationship?" The phone trembled in his hand. Kokushu continued her chilling explanation, suggesting that if the girl Kaido was searching for and the culprit of the past serial killings were indeed the same person, then the situation was dire. She revealed that the culprit had completed her sentence just last year. She then ominously added, indicating that after her release, the next target would be chosen. He listened, his eyes wide with dawning horror as the full weight of her words settled upon him. The realization solidified into a terrifying certainty. Mirai-kun, Sasuke, was in grave danger. Kokushu's words echoed, confirming that Tsubasa-chan was indeed the girl nobody knows, and her madness was now fixated upon his friend. A tense confrontation unfolded as Tsubasa, with a menacing air, pressed intensely upon Kaido. The situation was dire, for Mirai, Sasuke's friend, was in grave danger, caught in Tsubasa's deadly game. Sasuke stared in disbelief, questioning if the revelation was a joke, then stammered, asking what the implications were for him. Kaido, nearby, appeared equally distressed, his brow furrowed with worry. Tsubasa, too, showed a flicker of concern, her expression troubled. Sasuke, now amidst a dense forest, reiterated his shock, unable to accept the gravity of the situation. As the three stood together in the shadowy woods, a sudden gust of wind swept through the trees, creating an unsettling atmosphere. He looked down, his face etched with despair, silently cursing the unfolding events and wondering why this was happening to them. Kaido, however, was consumed by a desperate resolve, realizing that if he failed to act, Mirai's life would be forfeit. He cursed the situation, his mind racing for a solution. He then looked up, startled, as his phone vibrated in his hand, drawing his attention. From the darkness, Tsubasa's voice echoed, her tone casual yet chilling, as she inquired about Susuk's friend, Mirai. She smiled, a chilling question on her lips, wondering if someone was interfering with their relationship. Kaido, visibly distressed, covered his mouth, while Girl A looked on with concern, asking if he was alright. His distress deepened, sweat beading on his face as a terrifying thought consumed him. If things continued this way, it would be a repeat of what happened to Nishida. The grim premonition manifested as a vision of Girl A standing distraught, while Mirai lay on the ground, eyes wide with terror, the chilling realization dawning that Mirai was going to suffer a similar fate. Still reeling from the vision, Kaido could only utter a soft, "Oh," as Girl A, her concern growing, called out Mirai's name. She gently placed a hand on his arm, offering silent support, as Kaido, still sweating, struggled with the disbelief that he had met someone so dangerous. His face contorted with determination. He knew he had to act, declaring internally that he had to stop her. With newfound resolve, Kaido approached Mirai, apologizing for involving him in the unfolding events and urging him to listen. Mirai, taken aback by Kaido's sudden urgency, looked at him with wide, questioning eyes, asking if he should listen. As Girl A stood nearby, Kaido held up his phone, revealing a message from Tsubasa that had just arrived, explaining that she had sent it moments ago. He urged Mirai not to panic, but Mirai, visibly distressed, questioned what they should do in their precarious situation. With Mirai succumbing to panic, Kaido realized the responsibility fell to him to take action. As Kaido began tapping on his phone, Mirai, still anxious, asked what he was doing. Kaido stared at his phone, where a message from an anonymous sender questioned his relationship with Mirai. He contemplated sending a draft message to Tsubasa, a clear rejection stating, "Tsubasa-chan, you are wrong. I can't accept your feelings. Please stop sending me these messages." He assured Kokoshu that he would be fine, but she countered, expressing concern that he would be putting himself in danger. Kokoshu hesitated, and Kaido explained his reasoning. If Tsubasa focused her attention on him, it would be easier to locate her, preventing her from indiscriminately targeting Mirai and their other friends. He acknowledged that this was a problem he had caused, and therefore, he had to put himself on the line. As Kaido held his phone, Kokoshu conceded that his logic was sound. If he did not clearly reject Tsubasa, she would likely attack Mirai. With a determined expression, Kaido declared his intention to send the message, as both Mirai and Kokoshu watched him intently. A soft whoosh accompanied the action as Kaido's finger pressed the send button on his phone, dispatching the message into the digital ether. The message Kaido had sent landed with a soft chime. Following the chime, Tsubasa's phone displayed the incoming communication, and she looked at it with wide, surprised eyes, realizing a reply had come. As she read the contents, her expression shifted to one of profound sadness, tears welling in her eyes as a single, agonizing question echoed in her mind. Why? The initial shock quickly gave way to a barrage of further messages, each one a frantic why. Or hey, why are you saying that? One message, specifically addressed to Susukun, expressed confusion, stating, "I don't get what you're saying, weird." The relentless stream of questions and the perceived betrayal began to harden her resolve, her jaw clenching as a storm of emotions brewed within her. Her internal turmoil erupted into a furious outburst, demanding an answer from the silent sender. She screamed that she had done everything for them, her voice laced with a desperate, furious plea for acknowledgement. Meanwhile, Kaido, the true sender of the message, watched the unfolding chaos on his own device, his face grim and shadowed, bearing the weight of his decision. The cracked screen of his phone mirrored the fractured situation, reflecting his own distressed expression as he made a decisive tap, sending another action into the digital ether. A sudden urgency seized him, his hand clenching into a fist as he realized the immediate need to find her. He quickly sought out Mirai, explaining the gravity of the situation and warning him that Tsubasa was undoubtedly furious now, urging him to be careful. Mirai, looking concerned, acknowledged the warning, stating he would keep it in mind. Elsewhere, Tsubasa, still reeling from the messages, questioned if this outcome was truly acceptable. Still reeling from the previous events, Kaido, Susuke, and Kokoshu stood amidst the trees, discussing their next move. Kaido, holding his phone, began to outline their plan, stating, "Well, first." As Susuke inquired about their immediate next step. As they continued their conversation, Susuke pressed further, asking if there was anything they might be overlooking regarding Nishida. Meanwhile, a bare foot carefully stepped onto the forest floor, creating a soft rustling sound as its owner moved with deliberate stealth. Unaware of the hidden observer, Kaido, Susuke, and Kokoshu remained engrossed in their discussion, their backs to the dense foliage where a figure watched them intently. They continued their conversation, oblivious to the danger lurking just beyond their sight, their forms framed by the dark trees. Suddenly, Kokoshu gasped in surprise as the heel of her shoe snapped beneath her, sending fragments scattering across the ground. The sudden breakage caused her eyes to widen in a mixture of shock and dawning fear. Kaido, hearing the sound, turned to her, asking if she had a moment, but she was already calling out to Susuke, her voice laced with urgency. With a look of profound distress, she urged them to stay calm and listen, revealing a chilling discovery. Someone was watching them, and she had seen a knife. Her words hung heavy in the air, leaving Kokoshu grim-faced and Kaido utterly stunned, only managing a choked wah in response. Her suggestion to move to a different location hung in the air, prompting Kaido to question where they should go. Sasuke then proposed the main library, explaining that it would be easier to investigate the mysterious, unknown girl there. The chronicler noted that Kokoshu's suggestion would profoundly alter their destinies, raising the question of whether the time for a direct confrontation had finally arrived. A chilling presence loomed, a young woman with dark, shadowed eyes and a sinister smile, her madness drawing ever closer. Elsewhere, Sasuke, his face etched with fear, questioned the command to flee, while Kaido, equally terrified, watched as a hand reached towards the rustling undergrowth. His own eye widened in stark terror. His heart pounded as he stood beside Girl D, both of them gripped by terror. He gasped, recognizing the name of the one who brought such fear. Tsubasa-chan. Meanwhile, Kokoshu, her expression grave, observed the unfolding situation with deep concern. She gripped a small, paw-print-shaped device in her hand, her resolve firm as she declared, "Don't worry, let me handle this." A deafening alarm blared through the air, scattering birds from the trees as a chain clinked loudly, signaling a sudden, drastic change. The piercing sound caused Kaido and Girl D to recoil in confusion, while Kokoshu clutched her chest, her face a mask of distress. A security guard, drawn by the commotion, approached them, asking what was wrong. The guard reported that he had found no one, bringing a wave of relief to Kaido and Girl D, who thanked him profusely. Kokoshu, however, remained silent, her gaze averted. As Kaido offered his thanks to Kokoshu, a faint blush spread across her cheeks, and she offered a small, shy smile in return. The students, including Kaido, Kokoshu, Sasuke, and Girl D, walked together, their chatter filling the air as they navigated the bustling environment. As they continued, Sasuke suggested they stick to crowded roads if possible, a point Kaido readily agreed with, acknowledging the wisdom in such caution. Kaido then turned to Kokoshu, asking if he had known she carried a personal alarm with her. She looked down, a slight blush on her face, and after a moment of hesitation, quietly affirmed his observation. She then began to explain that a friend of hers had once been threatened by someone dangerous. She held up the small, paw-print-shaped device, clarifying that her friends, worried about her safety, had given her the alarm, which she now kept with her at all times. As Kokoshu finished, Sasuke interjected, his expression serious, asking if the threat had been from a stalker. He then remarked on the prevalence of creeps in the world, to which Kokoshu quietly assented, her grip tightening slightly on the alarm. Kaido, observing her reaction, called out her name, his gaze filled with concern. She quickly pointed ahead, a faint blush returning to her cheeks, announcing that they had arrived at their destination, seemingly eager to change the subject. She looked back nervously, asking Kaido and Sasuke if anyone was following them. Kaido, observing their surroundings, reassured her that there were many people around, making it easy to call for help if needed, and thus, they should be safe. Despite his words, Kaido still appeared anxious, while Kokoshu remained silent, her expression unreadable. Breaking the silence, she then proposed they begin their research on the girl nobody knows. As they entered the vast central library, Sasuke remarked on its immense size. Kokoshu explained it was the biggest donated book library in Kanto, containing almost everything imaginable. Kokoshu pointed towards a section, indicating where the Mokutsuki Bunko books were located. Kaido, however, was preoccupied, wondering if he had inadvertently caused her pain by reminding her of something unpleasant. He felt a pang of guilt, believing it was all his fault for dragging her into this dangerous situation. Turning to her, he awkwardly thanked her for her help. He continued, acknowledging that he had involved her in something dangerous, yet she was helping them so much. With a humble smile, he admitted he wasn't smart or skilled at anything, unlike her, and thus didn't know if he would ever be able to return the favor. He watched as Kokoshu, her cheeks flushed, stammered a denial, insisting that her excitement was not what Sasuke implied. She quickly clarified, explaining that she was merely discussing the distinct differences between the library's main building and its annex. She then trailed off, dismissing her own words as unimportant. Kokoshu then pointed to a map, illustrating the layout of the Sumiyoshi and Mokutsuki campuses, noting the rivers separating them. She enthusiastically declared that for anyone passionate about books, the library was the ultimate destination, leading Kaido to ponder if she simply harbored a deep affection for libraries. He felt a sense of relief, observing that she seemed to have regained some of her usual cheerfulness. Kokoshu then suggested they proceed, believing the books on murder cases were located in a different section. She added that students from the Faculty of Arts, like them, frequented that area quite often. As they walked through the library, a young woman with long dark hair glanced back at them, her expression unreadable. Moments later, Kokoshu greeted the girl, calling her Mitsuha and asking how she was. Mitsuha responded with a simple, "Fine," before Kokoshu let out a surprised "Oh." Sasuke, observing the interaction, murmured, "What is it?" before a sudden realization struck him, and he exclaimed, "Wait, that girl." Mitsuha, looking somewhat melancholic, confessed that she felt as though she had liked that girl before. Sasuke, clearly taken aback, questioned her, asking if she was serious. He then pressed further, asking if she meant she had liked everyone on that dating app. He listened as Mitsuha explained that she never expected to attend the same university as him, but acknowledged that such coincidences sometimes occur. Sasuke, however, found himself thinking about her popularity. He quickly told Kokoshu not to rub it in his face. Kokoshu, in turn, speculated that if he had matched with Mitsuha on the dating app, she might have been one of Tsubasa-chan's victims. Kokoshu dismissed the notion, assuring him it was fine and that she and Mitsuha were good friends. She then apologized for making him wait. She insisted it was nothing like that, emphasizing that Mitsuha was special. he observed that Kokoshu seemed to know a remarkable number of people. To illustrate their bond, she showed him a photograph on her phone, revealing herself and Mitsuha on a vacation in Kyoto. She remarked on how cute Mitsuha looked with her hair down in the picture. He then suggested they try looking up some articles using the nearby computer. She agreed, realizing the importance of their research. He reassured her there was no problem, but then her phone suddenly began to ring, startling her. She looked down at the insistent ringing, her expression darkening as shadows fell across her face. The tapping sound of the phone continued. Without a word, she turned and rushed towards the exit, slamming the door shut behind her. The screen of her phone, still clutched in her hand, displayed an incoming call from Tsurumi Mitsuha. Her cheeks flushed, she confirmed that no one else was present, acknowledging the presence of Sasuke. Still lost in thought, she mused that they had not yet spoken about Tsubasa-chan, though it appeared others were actively searching for her. Her gaze sharpened, and a look of intense anticipation crossed her face as she internally declared that she had been waiting for this precise moment for an eternity. The focus then shifted to a phone screen, displaying a series of anonymous messages, prompting an internal question about what secrets this woman could possibly be concealing. Suddenly, a striking young woman with long, wavy purple hair and piercing green eyes was revealed, holding a phone that displayed a dating app interface proclaiming, "Tsubasa-chan, you're my killer match. Sorry to keep you waiting," a young woman with long blonde hair announced, her back to the observer, as secrets and madness seemed to crawl around Sasuke. The air was thick with unspoken truths, hinting at a killer match. She then focused on her phone, its screen displaying various applications, including one labeled Anonymous. Her thoughts drifted to resuming the search for information pertaining to Tsubasa-chan. Moments later, the trio found themselves amidst the towering shelves of a library, each engrossed in their own search. The blonde woman stood to the left, Sasuke in the center, and the light-haired young man to the right, all sifting through countless volumes. He meticulously scanned the spines, his gaze falling upon a book titled Deadly Incidents. Maybe this one, he mused, pulling it from the shelf, surrounded by other grim titles like Juvenile Crimes and Forensic Field. Eventually, the intense search led Sasuke and the blonde woman to a study table, where they continued their research side by side. The light-haired young man remained at a separate table, still immersed in his own studies. As he delved deeper into the material, a troubling thought surfaced in Sasuke's mind. Is Tsubasa-chan really the girl nobody knows? His expression was etched with doubt and concern. Noticing his pallor, the blonde woman leaned closer, asking if he was all right, remarking on how pale he looked. He quickly reassured her, stating he was fine. She then inquired about a recent call, wondering if everything was all right and if it had been important. He dismissed her concern, explaining it was merely from Mitsuha-chan. The blonde woman seemed surprised, asking if that was truly okay. He reiterated his belief that it was fine, but she then revealed that Mitsuha-chan also used the same dating app and had apparently found him there. He looked utterly bewildered by this new information. She acknowledged his anxiety about the situation, emphasizing the need to resolve it quickly. He thanked her, clarifying that Mitsuha had only asked out of curiosity, and he had made sure she wouldn't misunderstand. "You're right," she conceded, accepting his explanation. Sasuke was still searching through the archives when Tsubasa, having found something, called out to him. She held up a document, asking if this was what they were looking for. He leaned in, joining her at the table, as they both focused on the document she had discovered. The document was a newspaper clipping, its bold headline screaming, "The Girl Nobody Knows." It was an archive of heinous juvenile crimes. She continued to read, her expression grim, as the article detailed a series of stabbing incidents that had occurred 5 years prior in the S-ward of Tokyo, developing into a shocking string of murders at the XX institution. He absorbed the horrifying details, learning that the culprit had murdered her victims in a particularly brutal fashion, employing methods like arson, drowning, and dissection. Tsubasa, meanwhile, noted that the perpetrator had constantly changed her methods, almost as if mocking the police's efforts to catch her. He questioned how the culprit managed to evade capture, to which she explained that the girl made her victims disappear. To avoid suspicion, she would then coerce a classmate. The narrative shifted, illustrating Tsubasa's words. A terrified schoolgirl with pigtails, holding a phone, was being coerced by a shadowy, hooded figure. The coercion led to a chilling pact, symbolized by two schoolgirls holding hands, their fates now intertwined. The scene expanded to a classroom, filled with students, each isolated in their own space, unaware of the dark undercurrents at play. The ultimate horror was revealed. The culprit, a schoolgirl, stood amidst a pile of bodies, a weapon clutched in her hand, while another girl, possibly Tsubasa herself, watched the gruesome aftermath. She considered the immense difficulty of locating the girl nobody knows, if Tsubasa herself were the culprit. His eyes widened in disbelief, questioning if she truly made her victims vanish without a trace. The killer, it was revealed, had deliberately spread misinformation across the internet to delay police investigations. This tactic proved effective, as the advanced nature of the techniques led investigators to dismiss children as potential suspects, greatly prolonging the search. He recoiled, a chilling thought forming in his mind. Could this fiendish killer truly be Tsubasa? The chilling image of the fiendish killer solidified in his mind, a dark silhouette standing amidst a desolate, ruined room. He clenched his fists, a wave of terror washing over him as he grappled with the horrifying realization of the girl he had been paired with. His brow furrowed, a bead of sweat tracing his temple as he pondered his next move, utterly unsure of what he should do. Meanwhile, in a library filled with towering shelves, the light-haired young man sat deep in thought, a pen poised over a page, meticulously taking notes. Tsubasa approached him, observing his work and asking if he was summarizing all the scattered information. He confirmed that the same details were also present in the magazine they were consulting. They both leaned in, their heads close together, intently scrutinizing the pages of the magazine. A hand turned the page, revealing a class picture that was rumored to contain the image of the culprit. A photograph of several schoolgirls, their faces obscured by black bars, was presented. One of them was identified as the suspect, prompting the question of whether any resembled Tsubasa. Sasuke, observing the image, felt a bead of sweat trickle down his face. He admitted internally that while some felt similar, he truly couldn't be certain. His gaze fixated on a small mole on one of the obscured girls, a detail that felt eerily familiar. He strained to recall where he had seen it before, a frustrating blank in his memory. As Sasuke pondered the elusive memory, he found himself back in the library with Tsubasa. He reached out, asking if she could show him her notes as well. She looked at his notes, her eyes widening in surprise as she read the title. Maiden's psychological test? Tsubasa became visibly flustered, waving her hands and denying any particular interest in such things, while he clarified that he was merely showing it to a friend. Still blushing, she quietly admitted that she did, in fact, like those kinds of things. Their conversation was abruptly interrupted by the light-haired male, who leaned over Sasuke's shoulder, teasing him about Tsubasa. Sasuke, startled and annoyed, sharply told him to stop looking at his notes without permission, calling him creepy. He then remembered receiving cookies from Tsubasa in that very library, a small, sweet memory amidst the current tension. As they continued their search, Sasuke expressed confidence that the item they sought was somewhere nearby in the library. He suddenly recoiled, his eye wide with shock as something splattered before him. The disturbing vision continued, revealing a wall covered in unsettling drawings and a chilling message scrawled across it. Sasuke-yuen, were the cookies tasty? A crumpled bag lay on the floor below. He thrashed in his sleep, clearly tormented by the nightmare, as the vision showed him a dark stain spreading on the floor beside the bag. His eyes snapped open, still wide with terror, as he struggled to comprehend what he had just witnessed. He looked utterly bewildered, his mouth agape, while Tsubasa-chan, sitting beside him, also appeared surprised and concerned by his sudden distress. Suddenly, a new figure stepped into the space, their high-heeled shoe landing with a decisive tap, and with a swift, aggressive motion, they grabbed someone's hair. She then embraced him from behind, her arms wrapping around his chest, a subtle, knowing smile playing on her lips, while he remained visibly uncomfortable and startled by her sudden closeness. Her gaze was sharp and direct, a small, distinctive mole visible just below her left eye. Her face, partially obscured, hinted at a deeper connection to the ongoing investigation, particularly to a class photo rumored to contain the culprit. She smiled warmly, yet with an unsettling intensity, as she greeted him by name. "Hello, Sasuke." The mysterious woman's presence lingered, her distinctive mole now a focal point of a new inquiry. The narrative paused to reflect, posing a direct question about her connection to a larger case and her bewitching mole. A digital profile, possibly belonging to Sasuke, was briefly glimpsed before the chronicler teased a significant personal revelation for the upcoming chapter. A woman's footsteps echoed softly as she approached, her identity about to be revealed. Moments later, she stood before Sasuke and Tsubasa, offering a polite greeting. Tsubasa, startled by the newcomer, looked on with wide, surprised eyes as the woman addressed Sasuke directly. Both Sasuke and Tsubasa recognized a distinctive mole on the woman's face, a feature they had seen in a recent article, causing a wave of realization and unease to wash over them. The woman, with a knowing smirk, then turned her gaze directly towards them, prompting one of them to question if she was indeed the girl nobody knows. She feigned ignorance, holding up her phone and asking innocently who Tsubasa was, despite the clear accusation. Her dismissive tone only fueled the growing frustration of the other person, who vehemently told her to stop playing dumb. Sasuke, now visibly agitated, held up his own phone, displaying an article, and demanded she stop, accusing her directly of killing Nishida and Futami. He also questioned her about the cookies and her true intentions towards him. He pressed further, asking if she truly did not remember him, a thought that briefly crossed his mind. She, however, simply dismissed his concerns, pointing out the obvious difference in their hair colors as if to invalidate any past connection. Then, with a confident, almost triumphant smile, she finally revealed her true identity, declaring herself to be Shiki Saku. She held up her phone, displaying Sasuke's profile on an anonymous social application, and with a knowing smile, declared that he had liked her. He reacted with a jolt of recognition, his eyes wide as he recalled the interface of the app, which showed options to like or nope, followed by a matched notification from 2 months prior, on April 10th. Still smiling, she explained her curiosity about the kind of person he was, adding that she thought she had seen him before, perhaps at her university. Her smile widened, a hint of something deeper in her eyes, as she corrected herself, stating she had actually seen him much earlier, during middle school. With a chilling, confident grin, she then made a shocking confession. She had been involved in the incident concerning the girl nobody knew. Both Tsubasa and Sasuke recoiled, their faces etched with horror, as he gasped in disbelief, demanding to know what she had just said. She maintained her unsettling smile, adding another layer to her revelation by claiming she was also a victim of that very case. She cast her gaze downward, her expression momentarily obscured, while Tsubasa, still visibly shaken, pressed her for answers, asking if she knew the identity of the girl nobody knew since she was a victim. Sasuke, his face contorted with fear and desperation, pleaded with her not to reveal the girl's identity. Ignoring his plea, Shiiki Saku reached out, gripping his shoulder firmly, and with a resolute gaze, confirmed that she did indeed know. She leaned in close to Susuke, her voice a low confession as she revealed her past. She had been a classmate of the enigmatic girl nobody knew. Susuke's eyes widened in terror, the weight of her words pressing down on him. He questioned internally if he could truly trust her, acknowledging that she, too, was pursuing the same mysterious girl. Meanwhile, she offered a faint, knowing smile. She then pointed to a figure in a magazine, asking if it was the same person they were discussing, the one who had been featured there. He recognized the man instantly, a wave of dread washing over him as he confirmed it was his former homeroom teacher, a person of immense importance to him. The realization solidified the truth of her claims. She continued, her expression somber, stating that his teacher was now gone, a direct consequence of the girl nobody knows. She then declared her own intent, stating that she was also actively searching for the girl. Susuke, reeling from the revelations, demanded to know her true objective. She gazed intently at a blurry image, a sense of familiarity stirring within her, though she couldn't be certain due to the obscured face. Meanwhile, another student wondered aloud if the girl's name and appearance had changed. Shiiki Saku then delivered a shocking revelation. The girl nobody knows attended this very university. Susuke and Tsubasa exchanged looks of profound surprise, the implications of her words sinking in. She then presented her phone to Tsubasa, displaying an album of images. She affirmed the certainty of her information, indicating that the people shown were those she currently suspected. She pointed to one of the images, finally revealing the identity of the first girl in her investigation. Her name was Ogurururi. Shiiki Saku continued to reveal the identities of the girls involved in the incident, presenting a smiling young woman with reddish-brown pigtails, whom she identified as Toi Haruka, the second person. She then introduced the third individual, Sumi Mitsuha, a striking young woman with long blonde hair, captured in a photograph on a phone, dressed in an elaborate, elegant outfit. The revelation of Mitsuha's identity stunned Susuke and the light-haired male, who questioned if this was the same girl they had just met, wondering if her appearance was merely a costume or a wig. Susuke, observing the light-haired male's flustered reaction, found himself equally bewildered. Shiiki Saku, however, maintained a knowing smile, suggesting that it was indeed a possibility, while Mitsuha herself appeared visibly shaken by the sudden exposure. Shifting her focus, Shiiki Saku then presented a series of images to Susuke, asking him to identify which of the girls bore the strongest resemblance to Tsubasa. He carefully examined the photographs, his gaze lingering on one of Ogurururi, noting that her attire seemed somewhat similar to Tsubasa's. As Susuke made his observation, the light-haired male interjected, offering a solution. He knew someone who was good friends with Ogurururi and could contact her. Shiiki Saku, pleased, urged him to proceed. He quickly rose, preparing to make the call, but then remembered they were in a library and decided to step outside to avoid disturbing others. While they waited for the call, Shiiki Saku suggested to Mitsuha that they look for more books. Mitsuha, still somewhat pensive, agreed and asked if Shiiki Saku would help her. A memory then surfaced for Mitsuha. She recalled bumping into Ogurururi before class. Susuke, observing the unfolding events, couldn't shake a feeling of unease, questioning whether Shiiki Saku was truly trustworthy. He stared at his phone, his eyes wide with shock and a tear welling up, a profound distress etched across his face. The screen of his phone, now fractured, displayed a message identifying Tsubasa and a profile image of Mirai. He gasped, recognizing the name and the face, a sudden realization hitting him. She recalled how Susuke had avoided speaking with her for a while, admitting she had spent considerable time pondering what had gone wrong between them. She concluded that perhaps they both simply needed more time to sort things out. Yet, amidst her confusion, she had come to one significant realization. His face contorted in terror, he screamed Mirai's name, the implications of the message and the image on his phone crashing down on him. He panted heavily, his mind racing, a chilling thought taking root. Perhaps he should kill again. The grim reality unfolded before him. His best friend, Mirai, lay assassinated, a pool of blood spreading beneath his lifeless form as Susuke stood over him, a silent witness to the tragedy. His face twisted in an agonizing scream. He cried out Mirai's name once more, the grief overwhelming him. Blood stained his hand as he desperately tried to escape the unfolding events. He was running away. He had once believed that Mirai would somehow manage to resolve everything, but now blood spilled again, and mysteries continued to plague them, casting doubt on their path forward. His heavy boots crunched against the ground as he continued his flight, a desperate attempt to escape the grim reality. He was only running away. Suddenly, a chorus of worried faces appeared. Sumi Mitsuha, the mole woman, and Ogurururi, all looking on with grave concern. A desperate cry of Mirai echoed, directed at the distressed young man whose lips were stained with blood. The flowing blood still hadn't stopped. He stood over a prone figure, the crimson liquid pooling around them, a stark testament to the violence that had occurred. As the door creaked open, Sumi Mitsuha and the mole woman peered inside, their eyes widening in shock at the sight before them. What happened? Mitsuha exclaimed, her voice trembling. Ogurururi's face contorted in a mixture of fear and horror, her eyes wide with disbelief at the unfolding tragedy. The mole woman, too, stared with a look of profound shock and distress, her usual composure shattered by the grim reality. Sumi Mitsuha, her voice filled with concern, turned to the partially visible Mirai. Mirai-kun, is he okay? She asked, her gaze fixed on him, seeking answers amidst the chaos. He remained silent, his gaze fixed downwards, as the gravity of the situation settled. Someone lay severely injured, bleeding profusely from their head. Nearby, Tsubasa, her expression filled with alarm, turned to Sasuke, asking if he was all right and what exactly had transpired. Meanwhile, Tsurumi Mitsuha knelt beside the injured figure, checking for a response. Finding none, she declared the need to call an ambulance immediately. Both Tsubasa and Sasuke watched the unfolding crisis, their faces etched with concern and confusion. Tsubasa, taking initiative, offered to handle contacting the staff and police, but Mitsuha, with a somber expression, interjected, stating firmly that the fault lay with her. Elsewhere, Mirai, overwhelmed by the events, began to weep openly, his name called out in a distressed tone. He buried his face in his hands, the weight of the situation crushing him as tears streamed down his face. The grand hall, with its ornate architecture, stood silent for a moment, until a distinct rattling sound echoed through the vast space. A sudden realization dawned. Someone was watching them from the upper levels of the hall. Tsubasa, sensing the shift, called out Sasuke's name, while he, startled, questioned who might be present. He dashed away, ignoring Tsurumi Mitsuha's urgent plea for him to take care of Mirai. She called out his name, clearly distressed by his sudden departure. His breath hitched in his throat as he continued to run, a desperate weight escaping his lips. He pursued a fleeting figure down a long, arched hallway, his voice echoing as he cried out, "Please wait." Just as he reached out, the door slammed shut, severing his connection to the fleeing individual. He could only utter a frustrated, "Why did you?" The sudden closure left him gasping, his face contorted in a mixture of shock and profound distress. Moments later, he found himself standing alone in a vast library, his shoulders slumped as he realized the futility of his chase. "She's not here," he murmured, defeated. A bead of sweat traced his temple as a chilling thought crossed his mind. If he failed to find her, what then? He scanned the rows of bookshelves, a memory surfacing. This was the very place where Tsubasa's cookies and her unsettling blood writing had been found. His eyes widened in sudden alarm, a silent exclamation escaping him as he noticed something unexpected. On a nearby surface, a smartphone lay illuminated, displaying a message addressed directly to him. It asked if he had gotten a good look at Mirai, acknowledged the difficulty, and then cryptically stated, "I hope that you'll now have eyes for me now." He stared, his eyes wide with alarm, as a chilling realization dawned on him. A smartphone? What was truly happening here? His gaze swept over the area, and he quickly noticed that the cookies and the pictures he had seen earlier were now gone. The smartphone, which he now recognized as Mirai's, displayed a chilling message addressed directly to him. It asked if he had gotten a good look at Mirai, claiming the sender had been working hard for him, and expressed a desire for Sasuke to only have eyes for them now. As he processed the unsettling words, the message continued, urging him to look at the sender. Meanwhile, the mysterious woman with the mole, who had been observing from a distance, held the very same smartphone. She softly repeated the message, questioning if Sasuke had truly seen Mirai. Her hand, clenched slightly, emphasized her internal declaration that she had been working tirelessly for him. Lying prone, she continued, her voice a whisper, expressing her hope that his attention would now be solely on her. Back with Sasuke, he stared at the phone, his face etched with a mixture of confusion and growing dread. Fumi Mitsuha then approached him, informing him that Shiiki had called for an ambulance and suggesting they return to Mirai. However, she quickly noticed his distressed state and admonished him, insisting he couldn't simply run off alone. As she spoke, her gaze fell upon the smartphone in his hand, and her eyes widened in surprise as Sasuke uttered a single, incomplete word. "This." She reacted with a gasp, her eyes wide with shock as she processed the message on Mirai's phone, realizing it implicated Tsubasa-chan. He acknowledged her concern with a somber expression, but she quickly suggested they should head back, addressing him as Mirai-kun. As they walked, she anxiously asked if Mirai was all right, her steps heavy with worry. He looked down, seemingly lost in thought, while the dark-haired woman asked him if he was all right, her gaze fixed on him. Mitsuha was seen in the background. The dark-haired woman stood near Mirai, who was now being carefully placed onto a stretcher by paramedics. A voice warned Sasuke to be careful around her. He then asked if she was referring to Kokushisan, to which she replied that she hadn't said this earlier, but Mirai was then wheeled away on the stretcher, the sound of the wheels clattering against the ground echoing through the area. Sasuke, Mitsuha, and the dark-haired woman stood together, the unsettling image from Mirai's phone still visible, a silent testament to the unfolding mystery. A flashback revealed Mirai, Sasuke, and Ogura Ruri together, as a voice explained that Shiiki-san was the girl who had been following Mirai, deepening the despair and suspicion surrounding the girl nobody knew. The suspicions surrounding Tsubasa deepened, prompting a silent question about her true identity. A voice within revealed a crucial detail, stating, "I didn't say earlier, but..." The weight of this unspoken truth caused Sasuke's eyes to widen in shock, a bead of sweat tracing a path down his temple as he processed the implications. The narrative then shifted, marking the beginning of Chapter 9, Through the Looking Glass. A new suspicion emerged, focusing on Fumi. Sasuke's mind raced, grappling with the shocking realization that the girl he knew as Tsubasa might have been with him all along, yet also be the mysterious Ogura Ruri, the girl nobody knew. He found it impossible to reconcile the two identities. He continued to process the information, as the light-haired male confessed to being the one who had been spying on Sasuke outside. Sasuke then pondered if they were overlooking any details regarding Nishida. Moments later, Shiki-san, holding her phone, explained that she had noticed a girl acting suspiciously and had zoomed in on her. She then revealed that the girl in question was herself, Shiki-san. Shiiki-san then speculated that the suspicious girl was likely Tsurumi Mitsuha, suggesting she was orchestrating events from behind the scenes. Sasuke, startled, questioned if Mitsuha was an accomplice, but wondered who else might be involved. He considered the possibility of another cooperating person, realizing they could have acted ahead of him. Tsubasa agreed, acknowledging the impossibility of preparing the cookies without knowing he was in the library. Sasuke, still holding his phone, mentioned that Murai's phone had been found on a shelf. Shiki-sen listened intently as he prepared to reveal more, hinting at a deeper truth. He then showed them the screen, which displayed a message from Murai to Sasuke, asking if he had gotten a good look at him and stating, "I've been working so hard for you." Sasuke, still reeling from the cryptic message, questioned Shiki-san about when Murai's phone could have been placed, noting that no one else was in the area when he found it. Shiki-san admitted she didn't know the exact timing. She then pondered if this implied a specific individual was responsible. Tsubasa, listening intently, considered the possibility that Kokushu-san herself might have placed the smartphone there. Shiki-san's eye narrowed, acknowledging that such a scenario would make sense, even if Kokushu-san's ultimate goal remained unclear. She then turned to Tsubasa, asking if Kokushu-san had a moment to speak. Shiiki-san explained that they were heading to the location where Murai's smartphone was discovered, suggesting there might be residual evidence. She then asked Tsubasa if she could handle the remaining tasks. As Tsubasa looked on, Shiki-san firmly took Sasuke's hand, declaring it was time for them to go. Tsubasa watched them leave, her expression a mix of surprise and concern. Shiiki-san's heels clicked rhythmically against the floor as she led the way, her determined stride echoing through the space. She instructed Sasuke to follow her, even as he pointed out that the shelf they were passing was in the opposite direction of where he believed they should be going. He looked at Shiki-san, his brow furrowed with confusion, and questioned why they were not searching for evidence. Shiki-san, however, insisted they needed to leave the area quickly and use her motorcycle. Her expression hardened as she declared that their initial premise had been a lie. She further explained that the library itself was dangerous at that moment, built like a maze with numerous places for people to hide. A sudden realization dawned on him. The one who had suggested they come to this very library was Kokushu-san. He recalled an earlier moment, a flashback to when he, Murai, and Tsubasa had been gathered, with Tsubasa stating they would research the incident. Tsubasa, holding a tablet, had then considered the possibility of being lured to a place suited for a crime. Back in the present, as he walked alongside Shiki-san, he pondered if this entire situation had been a trap designed to remove Murai from the equation. They arrived at a sheltered area where a motorcycle was parked, and Shiiki-san announced her intention to change into her motorcycling clothes. She then handed him a helmet, instructing him to put it on and wait for her as she walked away. He held the helmet, a sense of unease settling over him as he wondered if it was truly acceptable to abandon the library in such a manner. He grappled with the unsettling thought that Kokushu-san was deeply suspicious, especially if she truly was Tsubasa-chan. The realization struck him with a cold sweat. He absolutely had to escape the place Kokushu-san had led him to. As he processed this, Shiki-san, already mounted on her motorcycle, instructed him to take the back seat. She apologized for the wait, urging him to get ready so they could depart. The engine roared to life, and she told him to hold on tight. He could only manage a hesitant "why as they sped away. As they rode, he leaned in, asking Shiki-san where they were heading and if they were going to the police. He recalled Kokushu-san claiming she had called the police, but a nagging doubt persisted. Shiki-san, her expression grim, confirmed his suspicion, stating that from the looks of it, Kokushu-san probably hadn't called anyone. He admitted he hadn't actually seen her make the call, then asked Shiki-san if she had either, to which she replied that she had. A memory flashed through his mind. Tsubasa-chan, sitting on the floor, seemingly messing with Murai's clothes as if hiding something, while another girl stood nearby, recalling the moment an ambulance was called. The pieces clicked into place, and a horrifying realization dawned on him. Was she truly the one who had done such a thing? He continued to press Shiki-san, questioning her about the university and what she truly meant by her earlier statements. As he spoke, the motorcycle roared to life, its engine churning as they sped away from the library. She remained silent for a moment, her gaze distant, before finally responding. Her eyes widened in sudden alarm, realizing a new danger was upon them, and she cried out a warning to herself. Just then, a deafening screech of tires ripped through the air as a car swerved violently, its wheel locking up in a desperate attempt to stop. Shiiki-san desperately tugged at the motorcycle's brake lever, her face contorted in panic as she realized the brakes were completely unresponsive. She cried out in disbelief, repeating that this couldn't be happening. Moments later, the scene was a chaotic mess of twisted metal and shattered debris, the motorcycle and a car lying wrecked amidst a cloud of dust and smoke. A helmet and a pair of shoes lay discarded nearby, grim evidence of the violent impact. From the wreckage, he slowly stirred, a pained groan escaping his lips as he struggled to push himself up. He managed to sit upright, his body swaying precariously, clearly disoriented and injured from the crash. But the effort was too great, and his strength gave out, causing him to collapse back onto the ground, utterly defeated. He lay sprawled on the ground, his body aching from the impact of the crash. His phone, lying beside him, displayed a series of urgent messages, though he seemed too injured to notice them. Elsewhere, or perhaps in a fragmented memory, Ogura Ruri stood over the wreckage of the motorcycle. A chilling realization dawned upon her. The entire situation had been a meticulously laid trap. She lamented her own oversight, wishing she had perceived the danger earlier. Back in his injured state, Sasuke's hand twitched, reaching out as if grasping for something, the faint sound of clicks accompanying his struggle. As he lay there, a man with a cigarette approached, urging him to awaken. The man revealed he had an important question for Kaneshika Sasuke. Lost in a murky consciousness, Sasuke drifted through fragmented memories, seeing a young woman and questioning the events of his past. The young woman from his memories smiled brightly, her voice echoing as she asked him to recount that story once more. His eyes remained closed, a faint clatter sounding nearby, pulling him further from the dream's embrace. Still in a daze, he felt a rough scuff against his clothing, followed by a firm grab on his shirt, pulling him abruptly. A man with light hair and a cigarette leaned in close, his voice cutting through Sasuke's haze, urging him to wake up. The man's gaze was intense as he called out Sasuke's full name, Kaneshika Sasuke, the cigarette sizzling between his lips. His eyes snapped open, wide with confusion and a hint of fear, as he stammered, asking the man who he was. He then recognized the man, exclaiming, "That's right, Shiiki-san," and tried to recall his last conscious moments, remembering being on a motorcycle with him. As Sasuke tried to piece together his memories, a woman with short dark hair slid open a door and sternly told them to be quiet, causing him to flinch. He stirred, disoriented, wondering where he was. A woman's sharp voice cut through the haze, scolding someone about smoking and the repeated warnings against it. As he processed his surroundings, realizing he was in a hospital, the man named Shiki-san, seemingly the target of the scolding, clicked his tongue in annoyance and suggested they go get some fresh air. The man rustled, preparing to move, while Sasuke, still confused, questioned his identity. Shiiki-san reassured him that he had already spoken with the doctor, and Sasuke only had minor external injuries, offering to push him in a wheelchair. Suddenly, a new man appeared, holding up a police identification badge. He introduced himself as Utsunomiya-jin from the Metropolitan Police Department, implying a serious investigation was underway. Sasuke's eyes widened in shock, the word police escaping his lips as the gravity of the situation began to sink in. Shiiki-san, his expression hardening into a fierce glare, urgently told Sasuke that something was wrong and they needed to leave immediately. Sasuke, now wearing glasses and looking down, seemed to acquiesce, offering a quiet yes, as Shiiki-san led him away. Outside, under a clear sky, Shiiki-san commented on the pleasant weather, noting it was a good day for a walk, just as it had been 2 days prior. Sasuke listened intently as Shiiki-san revealed that the brakes on the motorcycle they were on had been tampered with, implying that the accident was no mere mishap. A wave of relief washed over Sasuke as he heard the woman from earlier confirm that Shiiki-san was fine. She also mentioned that the girl who was with them was receiving treatment and only sustained minor injuries. He questioned Utsunomiya-san about his friend, Mirai, who had been attacked at the university's library. Utsunomiya-san confirmed that Mirai was indeed at the same hospital, though in critical condition, a revelation that struck Sasuke with disbelief. He continued, revealing that a series of murders had been occurring around Sasuke recently, with 2 victims already identified. A chilling image of a severed head flashed through his mind, a grim testament to the violence. As the gravity of the situation settled, Sasuke looked down, a grim realization dawning upon him about Utsunomiya's true purpose for being there. Behind him, Shiiki-san stood silently, observing. His eyes widened in panic, a torrent of internal questions assailing him. What should he do? And should he reveal his messages with Tsubasa-chan if Utsunomiya were to discover them? Utsunomiya-san then pressed him, asking if he had been present during Nishida's attack, adding that Nishida and Futami were known to have poor reputations, making it unsurprising that many people harbored animosity towards them. Leaning closer, his face obscured by shadow, Utsunomiya-san's voice dropped, asking if Sasuke happened to know anything about the incidents. Sasuke shivered, vehemently denying any involvement. Utsunomiya-san, however, produced a phone, displaying a photograph that placed Sasuke at the scene. He then directly accused him of harboring a grudge and ordering someone to commit the murders, declaring his intent to arrest Sasuke as an accomplice. The accusation left Sasuke reeling in utter disbelief. Sweat beaded on Sasuke's panicked face as his mind raced, desperately wondering if Utsunomiya-san had somehow discovered his private conversations with Tsubasa-chan. With a chilling, knowing smile, Utsunomiya-san remarked that it was quite common for the perpetrator to be found among the victims in cases such as these. He continued to press Sasuke, his words implying a deeper meaning to the situation, while Sasuke's hand clenched tightly, demanding clarification. Sasuke, visibly shaken, could only stammer in disbelief as the officer revealed a startling development. Someone had confessed to the crimes that very day. The news stunned Sasuke, who immediately questioned if the confessor was Tsubasa-chan, only for the officer to confirm that the police were indeed investigating another individual as the culprit. As the officer took a drag from his cigarette, he mused internally that the more he delved into the case, the more inconsistent and unnatural the confessor's testimony appeared. His gaze then fell upon Sasuke, a clear suspicion forming in his mind that the young man was concealing something vital. With a piercing stare, he directly addressed Sasuke, demanding his thoughts on the unfolding situation. Sasuke, sweating profusely under the pressure, nearly blurted out, "Tsubasa," before catching himself, his distress evident. Just as Sasuke struggled for words, a new voice cut through the tension, as a young woman, seemingly a medical professional, rushed forward, demanding to know why a patient was being brought outside. She immediately recognized Sasuke, asking if he was all right, while he, in turn, identified the officer as being from the police to her. Nearby, Shiiki-san observed the exchange with a slight smirk, stating calmly that he was merely listening to what the officer had to say. As the young woman's expression hardened at the mention of the police, she apologized, explaining that Sasuke still needed to rest, and asked if he could return another day. Utsunomiya-jin listened, his expression unyielding. Moments later, Utsunomiya stood outside, exhaling a plume of smoke, his gaze distant as he processed the interruption. The woman then conceded, stating that he could stay, but only if she was allowed to guard Sisuk herself for a while. He seemed to accept her terms, acknowledging her request. He leaned in, a subtle sound of acceptance passing between them, and told her to go ahead with her plan. Utsunomiya's thoughts lingered on her, identifying her as Shiiki Saku, a flicker of recognition or suspicion in his eyes. His mind drifted to a chilling memory, a classroom, a body on the floor, and a young girl standing over it, clutching a knife. This was the incident that haunted him. He took another drag from his cigarette, his expression hardening as he concluded that the only one capable of meticulously planning such a murder, given the circumstances, was the very person he suspected. His gaze sharpened, the conviction clear in his eyes as he affirmed his belief. It was Sisuk. Meanwhile, Sisuk stood with a look of deep distress, Shiiki Saku protectively behind him, while Utsunomiya Jin watched from a distance. His suspicion of Kaneshika, Sisuk, now absolute. A man, silhouetted against a bright doorway, stood before two observers. A question hung in the air. Had a man truly turned himself in? Moments later, the weight of recent events crushed Sisuk, who sat slumped in a wheelchair, his face buried in his hands. He grappled with the revelation that Kokoshi-san, whom he had believed to be Tsubasa-chan, was not who he thought. He lay in a hospital bed, eyes closed, as a gentle hand reached out to touch his forehead, a soft clap, sound accompanying the touch. Sisuk stirred, opening his eyes to see Nurse Shiiki smiling reassuringly beside him. He asked what was wrong, but she simply dismissed his concern, claiming it was nothing. She then clarified that she had only suffered a few bruises and was otherwise fine, before turning the conversation to his own well-being, asking about his injuries. He listened as she explained that on motorcycles, the backseat passenger was more prone to injury, and it seemed he had been flung off, resulting in a concussion. She admitted she had been worried. Still struggling to recall the events clearly due to his head injury, he asked her what had happened. She then inquired about his conversation with this suspicious officer from earlier, noting that the officer seemed to have been suspicious of him. Nurse Shiiki pressed him further, asking if the incident was connected to the university and, more importantly, who Tsubasa-chan truly was. Sisuk, after a moment, agreed to tell her everything. She listened intently, her fingers touching her chin in thought, as she processed his explanation. She then confirmed her understanding, asking if he believed Tsubasa-chan was indeed the girl nobody knows, before concluding that she now understood the situation. She looked down, her expression filled with a quiet concern, as if pondering the weight of recent events. Then, with a gentle rustle, she offered him a dessert, explaining that the hospital store had her favorite. She urged him not to feel so down, reassuring him that she had properly informed the interrogators he was not the culprit. A warm smile graced her face as she held up a green tea parfait, asking if he wanted to eat it together. She confessed her simple love for sweet things, a small detail that offered a moment of lightness amidst their serious conversation. Her gaze softened as she looked at Sisuk, gently prompting him to eat, wondering why he hesitated. Sisuk, still processing her words, looked up in surprise when she mentioned an unexpected visitor had come to see him. Just then, a young woman with long hair, wearing a stylish hat and coat, stepped into the room, adjusting her cap as she announced her presence. Toi-san. Sisuk's eyes widened in utter shock, recognizing her instantly as Toi Haruka, the renowned idol of their university, and he questioned her unexpected presence. Nurse Shiiki, observing Sisuk's reaction, explained that she too had been curious and had asked Toi-san why she was there. Toi Haruka, her expression earnest, revealed that she was the one who had reported the accident and had come to visit Sisuk simply out of concern. She then inquired if Sisuk had been friends with Tsubasa-chan. He quickly denied it, explaining that he had only ever caught glimpses of her in classes and had never actually spoken to her, admitting he didn't even know how to contact her. As the conversation continued, she remembered his phone, suggesting the hospital likely had it, and asking if he wanted to retrieve it later. He suddenly recalled his phone, realizing its importance. He thought there might be messages from Tsubasa-chan on it, and with a renewed sense of urgency, declared they should go pick it up immediately. She readily agreed, confirming they would head to the reception desk. Despite her insistence that he use a wheelchair, assuring him she would push him gently, he confidently stated he hadn't broken anything and was perfectly capable of walking on his own. Moments later, Sisuk, Toi Haruka, and Nurse Shiiki arrived at the hospital's reception desk, ready to retrieve his belongings. A receptionist then presented Sisuk with a clear plastic bag, explaining that these were the items they had been holding on to. She added that while they usually gave items to a family member on the day of admission, there were some unusual circumstances this time. A tag on the bag clearly identified it as belonging to Sisuk Kaneshika and noted visits from relatives. None. He looked down at the bag's contents, seeing his phone and keys, and the stark message on the tag, which caused him to utter a soft sound of surprise. The receptionist, having confirmed that everything seemed to be in order, then asked if there was anything else. Sisuk, however, held up a second phone from the bag, questioning if it belonged to someone named Mirai. With the unexpected discovery made, Sisuk, accompanied by Toi Haruka and Nurse Shiiki, offered his thanks to the receptionist. He stared at the unfamiliar phone in his hand, a deep furrow in his brow as he wondered about its presence among his belongings. He pondered aloud, suggesting the phone might have flown off during the accident or perhaps the police had taken it. As he spoke, a sudden realization struck him. His own phone was missing. The woman beside him, noticing his distress, asked what was wrong. He confirmed his phone's absence, leading her to deduce that the device he now held must belong to Mirai-kun. He stared at the screen of Mirai-kun's phone, a new question forming in his mind. Had Kokushisan stolen this phone from him? Meanwhile, the man with the stubble, looking troubled, recalled the detective's earlier statement that another individual had turned himself in as the culprit. Sasuke, still processing the phone's implications, could only agree with the man's assessment. He continued, explaining that the man who had turned himself and remained silent about Mirai-kun during the interrogation, a detail he had heard earlier. The gravity of the situation deepened as a chilling detail emerged. A weapon, stained with Mirai-kun's blood, had been discovered near the library. Sasuke reacted with a confused sound, while the woman, her expression serious, added that it seemed even the police knew little about Kokushisan. The mystery surrounding Kokushisan deepened further, as it was revealed that she had simply vanished on that fateful day. The news of Kokushisan's disappearance struck Sasuke with profound shock, his eyes widening in disbelief as he processed the revelation. He then questioned if the police suspected Kokushisan as the culprit, but the woman with him explained that the information was classified, and they could not disclose anything further. She continued, reflecting on the many unknowns surrounding the case, including the tampering with her motorcycle and the mystery of Mirai-kun's phone. She then turned to Sasuke, asking if he had checked the contents of Mirai-kun's phone. He acknowledged the truth of her statement, realizing they needed to strategize their next move. He hesitantly admitted that he had not yet examined the device, the weight of the task still before them. She pressed further, inquiring if there was still a record of Mirai-kun calling Ogura-san's friend on the phone. She pointed to the screen, identifying a contact named Tokikane Rika in the call history, suggesting it was likely the person they were looking for. She added that Tokikane-san had indeed seemed friendly with Ogura-san, reinforcing the potential significance of the contact. As she scrolled further through the call history, she noted that Mirai-kun seemed to be frequently calling various girls, raising new questions about his activities. He stared at the device, a look of utter surprise spreading across his face as he processed the implications of Mirai-kun's extensive call log. He looked at the woman, expressing his confusion. He had believed the girl on Mirai's phone and Mirai himself did not know each other. The woman, holding the device, questioned why there was a call from this particular girl. As he leaned closer to the phone, the name, Tokikane Rika, became visible on the screen. He muttered Mirai's name, a new question forming in his mind. Why did Mirai have her contact? A shiver ran through him as the implications of this new discovery settled in. His gaze sharpened, filled with a growing unease as he pondered what his best friend, Mirai, could possibly be hiding. The sound of footsteps echoed as several individuals walked away, their forms receding into the distance. A lingering question hung in the air, hinting at a significant communication. As the previous scene faded, a new one emerged within a library. A young woman with dark hair and glasses, Mitsuha, walked past Sasuke and another young man, Mirai, who stood together. Sasuke observed her, a thought forming in his mind about her identity and the unexpected pairing. He wondered if he had misunderstood their relationship. His gaze lingered on the two, a deeper question arising in Sasuke's mind. Had they truly not known each other before this moment? The narrative resumed, focusing on a conversation between Sasuke, Mitsuha, and Mirai. Sasuke, still puzzled, began to ask why, but Mirai interrupted, explaining that when they had passed Mitsuha in the library, their interaction hadn't suggested any prior acquaintance. Mitsuha then turned to Mirai, her expression serious, and questioned why he had acted in such a way. Mirai, looking somewhat uncomfortable, explained that he had introduced her to Mitsuha so she could help them search for Tsubasa-chan. Toy Haruka, who was also present, added to Mirai's explanation, stating that he had introduced them because he claimed Mitsuha knew a great deal about the students. A faint blush colored her cheeks as she spoke. Mitsuha, however, seemed to consider a deeper implication. She suggested that Mirai might have had another, hidden reason for arranging her meeting with Kokushisan. Sasuke reacted with surprise to Mitsuha's words, his eyes widening as he processed the idea that Mirai might have had ulterior motives. He tried to deny the possibility, but Mitsuha pressed on, her gaze intense. She asserted that the only plausible explanation was that Mirai was the one who had introduced him to Kokushisan regarding Tsubasa-chan, thereby drawing him deeper into the unfolding incident. Mitsuha's words lingered, prompting Sasuke to decide he would go see how Mirai was doing. She understood his concern, but reminded him that Mirai was still in critical condition. Despite the warning, he felt an overwhelming need to see Mirai immediately. His determination led him to the hospital's intensive care unit reception, where a staff member informed him that Mirai-san was in critical care and visits were not permitted. Sasuke, desperate, pleaded with the receptionist, explaining that Mirai was his best friend and asking to see him for just a moment. The receptionist, however, maintained that she could not disclose information or allow visits without family permission. Mitsuha stood by, observing the exchange. As Sasuke continued to press, a doctor approached, asking if he was Sasuke. The receptionist, flustered, tried to intervene, but the doctor assured her it was all right. The doctor then smiled, indicating he had something important to tell Sasuke about Mirai. Sasuke confirmed his identity, and the doctor, turning away slightly, revealed that Mirai had been attacked by someone, lamenting the terrible things that people do. Sasuke, shocked, questioned if Mirai had said anything. The doctor confirmed that when Mirai briefly regained consciousness, he had been muttering Sasuke's name. The scene then shifted to Mirai in surgery, surrounded by medical staff. A monitor beeped rhythmically as a doctor, observing Mirai's face, realized the patient was trying to say something. Another medical professional quickly identified a potential aneurysm and called for a clip and general anesthesia. He struggled to speak, his face contorted in pain and sweat, muttering a fragmented warning. Tell Sasuke to run away. A medical staff member, masked and wide-eyed, looked on with profound concern as the patient delivered his urgent message. Meanwhile, Susuk stood nearby, his expression grim and heavy with dread, the name Mirai echoing in his thoughts. The doctor, standing between Susuk and another figure, explained that Mirai seemed worried about him. Susuk, his voice laced with anxiety, asked if Mirai would survive. The doctor, his expression grave, detailed Mirai's extensive injuries: a left parietal bone fracture, a traumatic subarachnoid hemorrhage, and an acute epidural hematoma, confirming his condition was very critical. Susuk's eyes widened in disbelief, his mind reeling from the doctor's words as he whispered, "No. No way." The doctor, maintaining a firm stance, informed them that as a medical professional, he could not permit visitors at that moment, urging them to pray for Mirai's safety and await his recovery. He then revealed that Mirai had been clutching something very important when he was admitted to the hospital. The doctor handed Susuk a small, dark earbud case with a key attached, instructing him to hold on to it for Mirai. Susuk examined the item, a look of confusion and concern on his face as he realized it was Mirai's earbud case and a key. He watched as Mitsuha approached him, offering a polite thank you before excusing herself and walking away. As she departed, Mitsuha pondered Mirai's condition, specifically questioning why he had been holding an earbud case while on a phone call. He, too, considered Mirai's habits, recalling that Mirai preferred to take notes during calls and never held his phone directly to his ear. Suddenly, a realization dawned on him. The phone itself was the notepad. Mitsuha, sensing his sudden insight, asked him to elaborate. He theorized that Mirai must have been writing a note on his phone while he was making the call. His suspicion proved correct as he found a note on Mirai's phone, detailing instructions for Fumi Mitsuha regarding cookies and a delivery at student lockers, along with an inquiry for Tokikane Rika and a series of numbers. Mitsuha, observing the note and the earbud case Mirai had been clutching, understood that he had intended for them to find this message. He confirmed that Building 3A, mentioned in the note, was indeed on the other side of the river from the library, on Mokutsuki's campus. Mitsuha concluded that Mirai must have known something significant, and she pondered the cryptic mention of cookies and deliver at student lockers. She speculated that Mirai might have been attempting to arrange a meeting with Tsurumi Mitsuha at the location specified in the note. She held Mirai's phone, its screen displaying the cryptic message. He pondered the implications, wondering what Mirai meant by deliver and why he was trying to meet with Mitsuha-chan. As he grappled with these questions, she reminded him that since they couldn't contact Tsubasa-chan, they should focus on investigating the immediate information they had. He acknowledged her point, agreeing that going to the specified location might reveal Mirai's intentions, but a sense of unease lingered. She understood his apprehension, recognizing the possibility of a trap, especially since the culprit had erased the contact history but left this particular message. She then instructed him to stay put. Taking his hand, she reassured him not to dwell on it too much, asserting that she had to deal with this matter herself this time. Her gaze firm, she declared that he was not the only one who wanted to find the girl nobody knows, implying her own resolve to help. Later, standing by a window, she proposed a daring plan: to sneak out of the hospital and go to the university tonight, if he was agreeable. He looked away, considering her words, the weight of tonight hanging in the air. She confirmed the timing. Yes, tonight, and extended her hand, inviting him to join her. He met her gaze, then took her outstretched hand, signaling his agreement to her bold proposal. "Let's go," she urged. Susuk knew he needed to uncover the truth behind Mirai's intentions and the true identity of Tsubasa-chan. His determination set, he moved through the night, his footsteps echoing softly with a crunch on the tiled floor. Meanwhile, the situation escalated rapidly at the university, where Shiiki-san appeared troubled, caught between those who pursued and those who were pursued. The case was undergoing a rapid development. Mitsuha reflected on the situation, acknowledging that despite the evidence implicating his best friend, Susuk was diving deeper into the case. She resolved that this was fine. As they walked down a sterile hospital corridor, Susuk internally vowed to find the person repeating the incident, knowing he must. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Shiiki-san crumpled a piece of paper in his hand, observing that Kaneshika Susuk had begun to make his move. He stood by a window, gazing out into the dark night, his silhouette framed against the city lights. Clenching a photograph depicting Susuk and another young man, Shiiki-san declared his unwavering resolve to uncover the truth. The narrative shifted focus to Shiiki Saku, who sat with a thoughtful expression, as the chapter delved into themes of love and peril, suggesting they are inextricably linked. Later, Mitsuha confronted Susuk, asking if the pictures of Tsubasa-chan he had been sent truly depicted the same person. He appeared taken aback by her question, but after a moment, he confirmed that he didn't notice anything amiss, and the person in the picture always seemed to be the same girl. Mitsuha then muttered to herself that if that's the case, then she was truly back, prompting a confused huh from Susuk. She quickly dismissed his inquiry, stating it was nothing. As Mitsuha considered the implications, Toei Haruka suggested that the person in Tsubasa-chan's picture might be a disguised Kokoshi-san or Tsumi-san, a possibility Mitsuha acknowledged as valid if those two were indeed behind the events. Susuk, still processing the implications, wondered aloud if a third party might be involved, as the individual didn't seem to be Kokoshi-san or Mitsuha-chan. He seemed confused by the situation. She, looking thoughtful, stated that if they could identify the girl in the picture, the investigation would become much simpler. She then pondered how they might achieve such an identification. Mitsuha then turned her gaze towards Susuk, who remained somewhat distant in his thoughts. She began to speak. She continued, explaining that she was merely wondering why the culprit would go to such extreme lengths. Sasuke, his expression etched with concern, simply asked, "What?" With a determined resolve, Mitsuha clasped her hands behind her back and declared that they needed to bring an end to this matter. She then playfully remarked that Sasuke certainly had a knack for getting involved with troublesome people. She chuckled softly, teasing him further about being loved by the girl nobody knows and finding him surprisingly popular. Sasuke, meanwhile, let out a quiet breath, deep in thought. Mitsuha offered a light apology, still smiling, but he quickly retorted that it was hardly a laughing matter. He conceded with a quiet yeah, and Mitsuha then suggested they return to his room, pointing out that he couldn't go outside dressed as he was. As Sasuke turned, a chilling sight met his eyes. A dark, indistinct figure was slowly creeping out from a slightly ajar doorway, its presence unsettling. The scene then shifted to the interior of the room, now empty and bathed in an eerie silence, with only a solitary wheelchair left behind. He looked around with a concerned expression, telling Mitsuha that he thought he had just seen someone. She turned to him, asking what was the matter. Mitsuha considered his words for a moment, then suggested it might have simply been a nurse passing by. As they sat in the hospital room, she proposed leaving a note as an excuse, even suggesting he could make up a story over the phone if a nurse inquired. He agreed, finding her idea practical. He remarked on her cleverness, which caused her to blush slightly, asking if he truly thought so. She laughed softly, assuring him she didn't mind his teasing. She then confessed that she had initially misunderstood him, finding him a bit scary when they first met. He thanked her for her kindness. Mitsuha then mused internally, observing that Shiki-san, the nurse, smiled a great deal when they were alone, a stark contrast to her usually stern demeanor towards Kokusan. He adjusted his glasses, and she, with a playful glint in her eye, leaned in slightly and asked if he liked her after all, given his previous comments. Her direct gaze made him blush and stammer, admitting that he didn't know about such feelings since they had only just met. Mitsuha then leaned further over the bed, causing it to creak under her weight, and declared her desire to do something good to cheer him up. He looked utterly surprised and confused by her sudden, close proximity and suggestive offer. He found himself still flustered as Mitsuha continued her teasing, reminding him that he had liked her anonymously. She then pulled down the collar of her shirt, revealing more of her chest, and provocatively asked if he had liked her appearance. A soft giggle escaped her lips as she observed his shocked expression. He stammered, questioning what she was implying. She laughed heartily, pointing out how red he had become and declaring him far too easy to read. He muttered to himself, feeling that he shouldn't be doing such things, while she watched him for a moment before looking away. Moments later, Sasuke-kun's eyes widened behind his glasses, a look of utter confusion on his face as he repeatedly asked what was happening. He pulled back slightly, his mind racing, acknowledging Shiki-san's appealing figure even as he internally chastised himself for such thoughts. Still flustered, he attempted to halt her actions, calling out her name, while his internal monologue continued to question his own inappropriate thoughts. He continued to reason with her, explaining that while he understood her fear, this was not the appropriate time or manner to engage intimately with just anyone. She looked up at him, a faint blush on her cheeks, dismissing his concerns by calling him an idiot and boldly stating her desire to be with him. As she spoke, her hand deftly slipped the strap of her bra, a clear signal that made him realize the depth of her feelings and that she truly liked him. He leaned over her, his face flushed with a mix of surprise and embarrassment, attempting to voice her name, but finding himself unable to complete the thought. Suddenly, a different presence loomed, a hand gripping a knife, trembling slightly in the darkness. The figure, a woman with long hair obscuring her face, raised the blade, her expression grim and determined. He recoiled, his face contorted in a mix of shock and fear, realizing the gravity of the situation and the potential consequences if Tsubasa-chan had truly arrived. Moments later, the sound of retreating footsteps echoed, signaling the departure of the unexpected intruder. Shiki-san, still in her intimate attire, looked up at him with a hint of frustration, questioning why he had spoken out, believing she was close to successfully luring him out. She explained that they had been followed by someone suspicious, and she suspected it was Tsubasa-chan. He reacted with surprise, asking if her claim was true, as she confidently stated that Tsubasa-chan likely couldn't catch up now that they were on guard, and then she opened the door. He finally understood the situation, realizing that Shiiki-san had been putting on an act, and he questioned why he had been subjected to such a misleading encounter. Shiiki-san, with a slight smirk and a playful glint in her eyes, chuckled softly and asked if he had actually taken her performance seriously. She dismissed his concern about her acting skills, stating she had already figured he would be bad at it. He retorted that if her actions were merely an act, she should have informed him beforehand. With a sly smile, she clarified that her comment was directed at his lack of acting prowess, not her own. She then posed a question, asking what he would have done if he had truly been attacked, admitting her own surprise at the unfolding events. She then revealed a hidden pepper spray and an assortment of other items tucked beneath the pillow, implying a meticulous preparedness for any genuine threat. Sasuke-kun stared at her in disbelief, questioning if she was merely jesting. She countered, suggesting he would protect her regardless, and that Tsubasa-chan would never truly resort to violence against him. He hesitantly questioned her sincerity, to which she responded with a cheerful affirmation and a confident, knowing smile. Still grappling with the situation, Sasuke-kun pondered if Tsubasa-chan's sudden appearance had been intended as a warning. Shiiki-san, her expression thoughtful, conceded that it was a plausible interpretation. He then pressed for the truth behind Tsubasa-chan, referring to her as the girl nobody knows. Shiiki-san mused that they might have stumbled upon a crucial clue. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a blonde woman and a dark-haired woman, who appeared to be Tsubasa-chan, examined a phone. The dark-haired woman speculated that the note displayed on the screen might belong to Mirai-kun, or perhaps relate to Kokoshi-san and Sumi-san, though the exact meaning of the clue remained elusive. The blonde woman, now clad in a hooded jacket, walked away from her companion, asserting that by investigating these leads, they would draw closer to uncovering Tsubasa-chan's true identity. Back in his room, Sasuke-kun was deep in thought, wondering if Tsubasa-chan had been checking on his relationship with Shiki-san, or if her actions were somehow connected to Mirai. He was warned by Shiiki-san that taking immediate action would draw more attention to him, potentially jeopardizing his chance to clear his name. She advised against it for now. He listened intently to her words, his expression thoughtful. As he held his phone, a realization dawned on him. The evidence mentioned in Mirai's note might be erased by Tsubasa-chan. He declared they needed to leave immediately. His gaze hardened with resolve. He proclaimed his intention to stop Tsubasa-chan, not only to prevent further casualties like Mirai, but also because he felt compelled to do so. Meanwhile, Shiki-sen sat perched on a building ledge, her eyes distant, stating simply that she would be waiting. The stage was set to return to the university, where Sasuke-kun would seek the truth Tsubasa-chan was hiding. Sasuke and Shiiki stood before a grand, ornate building under the night sky, their mission clear, to search for the truth behind Tsubasa-chan. Shiiki confirmed their arrival, stating, "We're here." Sasuke, his face illuminated by a faint glow, acknowledged Shiiki's sentiment. She remarked that while only 2 days had passed since their last visit, it felt like ages. He agreed with her assessment. Shiiki stood near a tree, her gaze distant, as a security officer, holding a glowing device, patrolled in the background. Sasuke, startled, questioned Shiiki's proximity to him, noting her slight giggle. She playfully denied being embarrassed. He then warned her that the security officer was nearby, and they should avoid being caught, lest they be kicked out. He explained their destination, the student lockers in Building 3A, estimating it would take no more than 10 minutes to walk there. He urged them to leave as quickly as possible. As they began to move, Sasuke looked down, deep in thought, while Shiiki walked beside him, her expression unreadable. She turned her head slightly, acknowledging his urgency, and agreed. "You're right. Let's go." They walked away from the building, disappearing into the tree line, a soft rustling sound accompanying their departure. The security officer, who had been observing them, subtly tipped their hat as Sasuke and Shiki vanished among the trees. The officer, revealed to be Tsubasa, lowered her hat further, her face partially obscured, as another rustling sound echoed in the night. Still disguised as a security officer, Tsubasa looked out with a determined gaze, her thoughts fixed on a promise. She silently vowed to bring Sasuke-kun to Fumi, asserting that it would only be a little longer. Her true identity, however, was hinted at beneath the uniform, as she was seen holding her security hat, revealing a more intimate attire underneath her jacket. The title, Kindred Spirits, appeared, suggesting a deeper connection or purpose. Meanwhile, the search continued within the vast, silent corridors of the building, lined with rows of student lockers. As they stood before the lockers, Shiiki instructed Sasuke to search for the specific locker mentioned in Mirai's note, while she would keep watch for other people. He acknowledged her request, ready to begin the task. A close-up revealed a small key, which Shiiki identified as the one attached to Mirai's earbud case, confirming it was likely the key to the locker they sought. Sasuke, looking somewhat surprised, turned to Shiiki as she began to ask him a question. She inquired if he and Mirai had attended the same high school. He confirmed they did not, stating they went to different high schools. He then elaborated on Mirai's past, explaining that Mirai initially went to a university prep school for medicine, but was allowed to choose his own path, ultimately joining the sociology department instead. A blonde woman listened intently nearby. Shiiki expressed her surprise, admitting she had mistakenly believed Sasuke and Mirai were old friends. Sasuke reflected on Mirai, acknowledging his amazing qualities and remarking that people like himself rarely get the chance to befriend someone like Mirai. Shiiki listened, absorbing his words. He continued to explain to Shiiki that Mirai was the one who introduced him to Kokoshi-san, and despite any implications, he couldn't shake the feeling that Mirai had simply been trying to do something good for him. Shiiki, listening intently, apologized, clarifying that she hadn't meant to contradict him, but rather sought to understand the meaning behind his earlier words. Sasuke, looking somewhat flustered, questioned her comment that an apology didn't suit him. Shiiki quickly denied his interpretation, then playfully warned him that she would be keeping a close eye on him, urging him to refocus on their search for the locker. He inserted Mirai's key into a locker, and with a soft click, it opened, much to his surprise. As the locker door creaked open, he peered inside with a look of apprehension, a bead of sweat forming on his temple. A sudden, powerful gust of wind, a distinct whoosh, emanated from the now open locker, causing him to recoil slightly in the dimly lit hallway. He reacted with alarm, realizing the entire area had plunged into darkness, exclaiming about a sudden blackout. In the sudden darkness, Shiiki's foot stepped forward decisively, while Sasuke's feet remained rooted to the spot, indicating her immediate action. A figure, now revealed to be Shiiki wearing a dark uniform and cap, grabbed Sasuke's arm firmly, holding a small, rectangular object in her other hand as he looked on in surprise and confusion. She silenced him abruptly, her hand clamping over his mouth in the sudden darkness. He could only manage a choked sound, his eyes wide with alarm. His attempt to speak her name was cut short by her firm grip, a soft whoosh of air accompanying her swift movement. Leaning in close, she commanded him to remain calm, instructing him to listen carefully to her words. Suddenly, a different voice, unseen in the darkness, warned him that Shiiki was the one responsible for Mirai's attack, claiming she was behind everything. He reacted with a gasp of shock. The voice continued its urgent warning, telling him that if he got too close to Shiiki, he would also be in danger, and implored him not to trust her under any circumstances. She then offered to reveal the truth behind Murai's attack, but only if he would get away from Shiiki and go alone to the classroom where he first met Fumi. He began to walk away from the lockers, a faint thud echoing as he moved, leaving the shadowy figure behind. As he walked, the lights above him flickered back to life, casting a sudden glow across the hallway. Just then, Shiiki, now back in her familiar attire, rushed towards him, her voice filled with concern as she asked what had happened. He hesitated, unable to form a coherent response, caught between the conflicting warnings he had just received. He questioned Shiiki about the sudden blackout, to which she explained that she had accidentally flipped the switches, causing the lights to go out unexpectedly. As she offered a quiet apology, he then pressed her, asking if she was responsible for attacking Murai. Shiiki averted her gaze, offering no direct answer. Her response left him in a state of profound uncertainty. He grappled with the conflicting information, his mind racing with the desperate question of what course of action he should take. Still reeling from the conversation, he pondered Shiiki's words, wondering if she had been telling him the truth. Meanwhile, suspicions began to grow deeper, implicating Shiiki, Kokushu, and a new figure, Mitsuha, as potential enemies. As these thoughts consumed him, a young woman, Mitsuha-chan, walked away, leaving him to wonder what she truly knew. Someone ran down a flight of stairs, their thoughts racing. They pondered the complex web of relationships involving Shiiki, Kokushu, and Mitsuha, questioning who truly stood as the adversary. A chilling realization settled. Shiiki was the one who had attacked Murai-kun, implying she orchestrated the entire situation. Elsewhere, Shiiki warned Sasuke not to trust a particular individual, emphasizing that getting too close to her would put him in grave danger. Meanwhile, Mitsuha gasped, her face etched with desperation as she pleaded for someone to arrive in time. Moments later, Fumi apologized to Mitsuha for the sudden summons. As they spoke, Fumi informed Shiiki that Murai-kun had called, and it appeared he was bringing Sasuke to their location. Shiiki's eyes widened in surprise, confirming if Fumi meant the very Sasuke-kun they had been discussing. Shiiki, still holding her phone, questioned Fumi's sudden proposal of a plan, asking if she truly intended to proceed with it. Fumi remained silent, her gaze cast downwards, a somber expression on her face. With a determined resolve, Fumi then handed an object to Shiiki, instructing her to take it and adhere to their plan. Shiiki stood before a mysterious woman, who, with a stern expression, warned her. If this was truly her decision, the woman would not stop her, but urged extreme caution, reminding her of a past incident 5 years ago that they could not afford to repeat. Shiiki listened, her face etched with distress. Meanwhile, Fumi offered a gentle, reassuring smile, telling someone not to worry, before expressing her gratitude to Mitsuha. Elsewhere, Mitsuha sat perched on a railing, observing a figure in dark clothing as they walked away from her, disappearing into the distance. She looked troubled, her brow furrowed with deep concern, her thoughts clearly consumed by Sasuke. She then began to walk away herself, her steps deliberate, as if heading towards someone who awaited her arrival. Later, Shiiki stood with Sasuke, both gazing into a room filled with rows of lockers, a sense of anticipation hanging in the air. She confessed that even with the plan in motion, the suddenness of events had truly startled her, as the vast, empty locker room stretched out before them. Sasuke, looking slightly flustered, apologized, explaining that he had just found the key and was about to call her over when he accidentally turned off the lights. He then inquired if she had managed to locate the specific locker the key belonged to. Shiiki, standing behind him, confirmed their success, indicating the correct locker. As he looked intently at the designated locker, a distinct creaking sound broke the silence. The locker, now open, revealed a chaotic interior filled with clothes, reports, assignments, books, and various pieces of trash. It seemed to hold little of immediate importance. He and Shiiki peered into the disarray, Shiiki questioning if this was truly all there was. He confirmed the presence of clothes, reports, assignments, books, and some trash, finding nothing that immediately stood out as important. Deciding a more thorough search was necessary, she proposed they remove everything from the locker. He seemed hesitant, unsure if that was the correct approach. As she began to pull out books and papers, a particular item seemed to catch her attention, standing out amidst the mundane contents. Yet, he felt a growing unease, a nagging suspicion that something was amiss. He suddenly recalled Mitsuha-chan, certain she had taken something from the locker earlier. He remembered it was dark at the time, making it difficult to discern details, but he was sure she had taken something resembling an envelope. He wondered if the clue they sought had been inside it. Meanwhile, Shiiki turned to him, her expression serious, and asked if he had accidentally dropped anything when the lights had gone out. Her question intensified his internal conflict. Mitsuha's words still bothered him, and he wrestled with the decision of whether to reveal what he knew or keep it to himself. His hand clenched, reflecting his inner turmoil. Shiiki, unaware of his dilemma, held up a book and mused that there might be a hidden message within them. She suggested they focus on searching through the books for now, finding the situation strange and believing there must be something more. She then turned to him, asking if he had any ideas about which book might contain such a message. He, however, remained distracted, his thoughts consumed by the need to get away and meet with Mitsuha-chan. He suddenly realized the implications of their current location. A security camera loomed overhead, observing the hallway with its unblinking lens. His concern was immediate. A guard might appear if they lingered near security cameras. He suggested they find a place where they wouldn't be interrupted, to which Shiiki proposed a clubroom, noting its proximity and the ability to lock the door for safety. As they walked, she casually mentioned being invited by a friend to join the volleyball club, though she admitted she didn't go often. He inquired if she had joined any clubs herself. He mused internally that the club hall was only a 5-minute walk from the classroom Mitsuha had mentioned, realizing this might work in his favor. Meanwhile, Shiiki, walking beside him, playfully demanded praise, asking if he thought she was good at sports. Moments later, they arrived at a clubroom. He opened the door, and she instructed him to take a seat anywhere. After they settled, she suddenly announced that she needed to run to the washroom quickly. He advised her to lock the door and wait for him, warning that it could be dangerous to be alone. She, in turn, told him not to take too long. With a sudden burst of speed, he dashed down the hallway. As he ran, a bead of sweat trickled down his temple, and he questioned his own actions, wondering if this was truly the right thing to do. He calculated that as long as his meeting with Mitsuha didn't exceed 10 minutes, and he returned promptly, he shouldn't appear suspicious. Back in the clubroom, Shiiki stood alone, a faint smile playing on her lips as she considered that she wasn't entirely certain Sasuke was guilty. Sasuke hurried away, his thoughts lingering on Shiiki, hoping she remained safe in the clubroom despite his departure. As he moved, his own phone began to ring, displaying Shiiki's name as the caller. Meanwhile, back in the clubroom, Shiiki sat, her own phone vibrating with an incoming call. She rose from her seat, the persistent vibration guiding her towards the door. With a smooth motion, she slid her finger across the screen, answering the call. A pleasant smile touched her lips as she greeted the person on the other end, casually asking about Niraikuin's stuff. Her expression subtly hardened as she reassured the caller that Sasuke had little room to maneuver, a realization dawning on her that his deceptions were becoming undeniable. She then offered a quick apology, as if for a minor misstep. Her gaze sharpened, a silent vow forming within her to expose whatever Sasuke was truly planning. Sometime later, a knowing, almost predatory smile played on Shiiki's face as she held a different phone, Sasuke's, its screen now visibly cracked, a testament to its lost status. The chronicler questioned how it came into her possession. The damaged screen of Sasuke's phone revealed a series of intimate messages from Tsubasa, confessing her feelings and urging him to meet her immediately. The truth behind Mirai's assailant, Shiiki, and Susuke's meeting with Mitsuha to ascertain the truth hung heavy in the night air, beneath a solitary moon. Under that same moon, the imposing structure of Mokutsuki Campus, Building 2, stood silent. Within its walls, Sasuke found himself before Auditorium C, a place that stirred a deep unease within him as he thought of Mitsuha. Meanwhile, the narrative shifted focus, presenting an image of Tsubasa, standing thoughtfully, holding a piece of paper, her presence hinting at the unfolding moment of truth. Elsewhere, a blond man recalled a past visit to a similar room, remembering how Mirai had introduced him to Kokushisan there. As he reflected, Sasuke's own thoughts drifted to a time when he had considered a certain woman an ally, a memory now tinged with doubt. That same blonde woman, her expression pensive, wondered aloud where everything had gone wrong. She then offered a faint smile, realizing in hindsight the significance of Kokushisan's past words. Her words, and the memory of Kokushisan, caused Sasuke to ponder if she had been hinting at something crucial all along. He reached for a door, a new realization dawning on him. Perhaps, even before the current incident, he had been unknowingly relevant to the mysterious girl nobody knows incident. He stood with his back to her, lost in thought, when Mitsuha called out his name. He responded with a sigh, admitting he did not know the answer to whatever troubled him. As she approached, her footsteps echoing softly, Mitsuha expressed her relief that he had come. She then explained her caution, stating she needed to ensure they were not being followed by Shiiki and the others before she could reveal anything. He, in turn, asked if she had been waiting specifically for him. Her expression grew serious as she declared that they needed his help to resolve the current case. He agreed to listen, and she instructed him to follow her to a more private location. They walked together along a grand, arched balcony, the night air silent around them. As they continued, Mitsuha broke the silence, inquiring about Mirai's condition and whether he would recover. Her gaze fell, and she confessed that what had happened to Mirai might be her fault. He pressed her for details, asking about Mirai's replacement and the nature of her relationship with Mirai. Mitsuha explained that, truthfully, she had wanted to wait for Mirai's replacement before taking any further action. His expression remained intense as he then asked about the replacement's position. She explained that he should ask Mirai himself once he recovered, indicating that their current location was suitable for such a discussion. He pressed her, his expression etched with concern, demanding to know more about the case involving Tsubasa. She turned to face him, her gaze serious, and countered by asking what he already knew. She then produced a plain envelope, holding it out as a soft rustling sound accompanied her movement, and inquired if he recognized it. His eyes widened in recognition. He immediately identified the envelope as having come from Mirai's locker. He gasped, questioning if Mirai had been conducting research, to which she confirmed that the envelope contained critical information about the girl that no one else was privy to. She explained that the envelope was originally intended for her, to be delivered in person by Mirai, but it had remained in his locker since he was incapacitated. He looked on, surprised, as she revealed her success in retrieving the envelope without Shiiki's knowledge, implying a discreet operation. He then questioned if she had been observing him at the hospital, prompting her to state that Mirai was not their sole collaborator, though she could not disclose the other's identity. She held the envelope, a soft rustling sound accompanying her movement, as he, accepting her secrecy, shifted his focus and asked about its contents. She presented the contents of the envelope, revealing a list of female students, each with a name and an accompanying number. The faces of Shiiki Saku, Izuru Hina, Toi Haruka, Itabashi Mihiro, Ogura, and Sayamegumi were visible among them. Sasuke, examining the document, questioned if it was a student list and what the unusual numbers next to each name signified, as they did not resemble typical student identification. Mitsuha, her expression serious, clarified that those were special numbers assigned to students upon their admission. She further explained that everyone on the list, including Fumi, had entered the university under some very specific, special circumstances. Sasuke, listening intently, echoed her words, pondering the meaning of special student. He then wondered internally what these special circumstances entailed and if they were somehow connected to the girl nobody knows. Mitsuha, her gaze unwavering, confirmed his unspoken thoughts, stating that their objective was to uncover the true mastermind behind the incident involving the girl nobody knows. Sasuke reacted with a gasp of surprise, repeating the word mastermind. A sudden, jarring flashback erupted, depicting a building engulfed in flames, its structure collapsing amidst the inferno. From the chaos, a desperate cry echoed, "Oni-I-chan." The flashback continued, showing a young girl with blonde hair, her face streaked with tears, standing amidst the debris and calling out for her Oni-I-chan. The chronicler pondered the unknown past shared by Mitsuha and Kokoshu. The male character stood silently, his thoughts consumed by the past incident involving Tsurumi Mitsuha and Kokoshu Fumi. Meanwhile, Mitsuha, standing opposite him, questioned internally if it was truly acceptable for her to offer him help. Suddenly, a cheerful voice called out, and Fumi appeared, smiling brightly as she extended her hand, seemingly addressing someone off-panel. Following the brief interlude, the male character, Fumi, and Mitsuha were seen together, with Fumi laughing lightheartedly as the male character expressed a quiet sense of awe. As they walked, Mitsuha, now wearing an eye patch, looked away with a pained expression, while another voice, presumably Fumi's, called out her name with concern. Despite Mitsuha's apparent distress, Fumi, with a radiant smile, suggested they walk home together, her demeanor unwavering. This moment triggered a memory for Mitsuha, recalling how she and Fumi had first met during their first year of middle school. She remembered Fumi's constant support, especially after Mitsuha had injured her eye, making them inseparable. However, a hint of concern surfaced as Mitsuha gently asked Fumi if she didn't have other friends she wanted to spend time with. Fumi, still smiling, dismissed the concern, explaining that her older brother was likely studying again today, and then revealed that her parents had remarried last year, giving her a new brother the same age as them. She explained that while they attended different schools, she had heard about him through her conversations with Fumi. He had, in fact, received a scholarship and was now studying abroad for high school, a revelation that surprised Mitsuha. Still holding the book, Fumi then revealed she had received it from her new brother's friends. Mitsuha, observing the intricate cover, inquired if she truly enjoyed such a book. Fumi affirmed her enjoyment, explaining that a boy and a girl who lived nearby told her many interesting stories, which were compiled in the book. Mitsuha, intrigued, asked what kind of stories they were, to which Fumi admitted they could sometimes be quite frightening. She then offered to share one, titled The Truth Behind the Pied Piper of Hamelin. Mitsuha immediately recognized the name, associating it with the tale of rats, but Fumi warned her it might be too scary. Mitsuha, however, insisted she could handle it. Fumi continued the grim tale, describing how someone had finally arrived in the town, offering to rid it of vermin on the condition of payment. Under the pale crescent moon, a lone figure played a haunting melody on a flute, leading a procession of children away from the town, while a group of shadowy men watched from a distance. Mitsuha questioned if this was merely a brother's grim fairy tale, but Fumi confirmed it was based on a real mass disappearance, with detailed records of the events. The story hinted at a darker truth, suggesting the town possessed a secret entrance to an underground prison where the children were ultimately trapped. Or perhaps, the grim reality was that a serial killer had murdered them all in cold blood, leaving only their chained skeletons behind. Mitsuha, visibly disturbed, questioned Fumi's interest in such morbid tales, asking why she would even read them. Fumi, however, remained cheerful, finding the records of past crimes incredibly interesting. She continued to explain the grim details from the book, stating that only children who were blind or crippled were spared from being taken away. The book, she added, also offered guidance on how to protect oneself in such dire situations. Mitsuha, still wearing her eye patch, expressed her uncertainty about whether such a detail was cause for happiness. However, Fumi, with a bright demeanor, quickly declared that this meant Mitsuha was safe for now. Fumi then recalled the two individuals who had given her the book, noting their preference for true crime stories like the one she had just recounted. Mitsuha, her expression clouded with concern, questioned why those people would provide Fumi with such a book, finding them pretty weird. As they walked along a city street, Mitsuha pressed further, asking if Fumi's mention of incidents around here referred to the recent kidnappings. Fumi confirmed her suspicion, suggesting that perhaps the book had been given to her precisely because of the strange occurrences happening lately. Mitsuha, still uneasy, shifted her concern to Fumi's brother, inquiring about his well-being after a visit from his school. Fumi, however, dismissed her worries, assuring her that he would be fine and had many friends he could rely on. An unsettling sensation seemed to linger in the air. Just as Fumi offered her reassurance, a new girl with short, light hair appeared in the background, calling out Fumi's name with a cheerful tone. Mitsuha, startled by the sudden voice, turned to face the girl, who introduced herself as Sora-chan and explained she had seen them from around the corner. Fumi, surprised by her presence, asked how long she had been there. Sora-chan, her figure now indistinct, invited Fumi to the movies, asking if she wanted to go right away. Mitsuha, also blurred, wondered aloud who Sora-chan was addressing. Mitsuha, still bewildered, reached out, believing Fumi was supposed to be heading home with her. She then recalled Fumi's recent outing to the zoo with her brother and the others, accusing her of fooling around too much. With a firm tug, Mitsuha looked directly at Fumi, her expression serious and demanding, asking, "Fumi, who is that?" She pondered if something was amiss with her eye, her hand pressed to her mouth in thought. Her thoughts were interrupted as Fumi, holding the unsettling book, expressed regret that they couldn't take her with them. Mitsuha, clearly displeased, retorted that it wasn't the case, explaining she had just invited someone else who had declined, then wondered aloud if no one desired to play with her. As Fumi and Sora-chan began to turn away, Mitsuha questioned if Fumi intended to involve her brother again, reminding her that he needed to study. Fumi dismissed her concerns, asserting that she always had someone to accompany her. She smiled faintly, adding that her brother's brain would surely rot if he overused it. Fumi, looking somewhat flustered, called out Sora-chan's name as the other girl ran ahead, waving a cheerful farewell. Moments later, Fumi took Mitsuha's hand, offering an apology before suggesting they depart. Mitsuha, looking surprised, then noticed something fluttering from Fumi's grasp, realizing she had dropped an item. The item was a map, now held open by their hands, covered with various markings indicating specific locations. Mitsuha questioned the nature of the map, to which Fumi replied that it contained markings on various public places such as the gym, temple, park, tunnel, and theaters, speculating they could be someone's personal notes. She intently read from a book, which detailed a kidnapping incident. In the building shown across this gate, the second boy was kidnapped. She continued to flip through the pages, discovering more unsettling entries. Page 155, near the church, a girl was stopped by the piper. Page 163, a boy wearing expensive clothes was. Later, as they walked down a narrow, urban street, Fumi revealed to Mitsuha that the numbers and locations marked on the mysterious map were directly related to the recent kidnappings. She watched a news report on a television screen, observing a male reporter. Fumi noted with alarm that an abandoned building, a church, and a cafe mentioned in the news were the exact same locations as those marked on their map, questioning if it could truly be real. Mitsuha, now wearing an eye patch over her left eye, questioned if all the locations matched and if it was truly not a coincidence. Fumi then pointed at the map, explaining that two locations did not match, one being a street on the outskirts of town. She looked at Mitsuha, continuing to explain about the other unmatched location. Her expression shifted to one of deep concern and dawning realization. A chilling thought solidified in her mind. That was where Sora-chan was taking her brother. As they stood together, a shadowy figure loomed behind them, unnoticed. A voice cried out, warning them, "Hey, behind you, behind you." And so, they drew closer to the very center of this unfolding case. Two students, Mitsuha and Fumi, intently examine a map marked with various locations and numbers. Mitsuha observes that these numbers and locations on the map are significant, while Fumi adds that their discussion concerns recent kidnappings, which she describes as the worst omen. Elsewhere, a young man, his face obscured by shadow, stands in a state of deep gloom, his expression unreadable. As the two girls walk, a male voice calls out, "Hey," from behind them. The young man from before quickly hides behind a wall as the girls turn to face an adult male, their teacher, whom they greet respectfully. The teacher, in turn, recognizes Fumi, asking if she is Ayumu-kun's little sister. The teacher looks at them with a concerned expression, inquiring about the matter at hand. The group continues walking, their footsteps echoing as one of them acknowledges the situation with a simple, "I see." As they walk, a hand points to the map, confirming that the locations of the disappearances indeed match the markings on the map. The teacher, considering the implications, admits that the theory sounds a bit far-fetched. Despite his skepticism, Fumi expresses her deep worry, explaining that her brother, Ayumu, has not responded to any of her calls or texts. She fears something might happen to him if this map is real. Hearing this, the teacher agrees that the situation is concerning and decides they should head over to check on Ayumu. He asked the students what area they lived in. One male student thanked him, and he offered to walk part of the way home, noting they were in the same direction as the movie theater. However, Fumi questioned if he wasn't busy, as he was on patrol today. He confirmed he was indeed on patrol, explaining that teachers had been going on patrols due to recent kidnappings targeting students and an incident where someone was pushed into a train. Fumi, now joined by Mitsuha, expressed her worry, hoping her brother was okay, especially after hearing about the train incident. Their conversation led them to a large, modern cinema complex, where Fumi wondered if this was the location. Sensei confirmed it was, asking Fumi if her brother was indeed at this theater. He then instructed the two girls to go home, assuring them he would check out the theater himself, but not before giving them his phone number and cautioning them to be careful and call if anything happened. As Sensei departed, Mitsuha suggested they head home, the sounds of distant chatter filling the air around them. Mitsuha then asked Fumi if she was all right. As Fumi confessed, she was still wondering why the mysterious map had been in the book and what might happen to Sora-chan. Fumi, still visibly worried, asked if they could check out one more place marked on the map, but Mitsuha tried to reassure her, telling her she was overthinking things and that everything would be fine. The city lights began to glow as dusk settled over the urban landscape, marking the end of another day. She was still preoccupied, remarking that while they were in the area, nothing seemed particularly out of place. Mitsuha questioned if she meant around here, referring to their immediate surroundings. As they walked, a car rumbled past, its engine sound briefly cutting through the evening air. Inside the passing taxi, Fumi's brother and Sora-chan sat together, their expressions unreadable from a distance. A sudden jolt of recognition flashed across Fumi's face as she caught sight of them. She recalled their faces, Sora-chan looking shy and concerned, and her brother appearing deeply worried, beads of sweat forming on his brow. Mitsuha, noticing Fumi's sudden reaction, asked what was wrong. Fumi, still processing the sight, could only stammer a fragmented response. Mitsuha, misinterpreting Fumi's distress, expressed relief, believing her brother was safe. Fumi quickly corrected her, explaining that both Sora-chan and her brother had been in that taxi. But a deeper concern gnawed at Fumi, a feeling she couldn't quite articulate. She clenched her fist, remembering their expressions in the taxi, which had conveyed something far from relief or safety. Mitsuha, with an eye patch covering one eye, looked out with a worried expression as someone called out, questioning if it was Fumi. The stark reality of the situation was laid bare. Sora-chan had gone missing. A few days later, Fumi and Mitsuha sat together outside the student counseling office, their expressions somber as they awaited news. As Fumi carefully opened the door, she saw Sora-chan inside, sobbing uncontrollably, while a male student looked on with concern. Sora-chan, her eyes wide with shock and distress, looked up as Fumi entered, her name escaping Fumi's lips in a gasp. The male student, sensing the tension, apologized for making them come all the way to their school and invited them to take a seat, indicating they needed to talk. He urged Fumi to calm down, but she, overwhelmed with anxiety, immediately pressed him for information, demanding to know when her brother would be back and if he was safe. Mitsuha stood by Fumi, listening as Sora-chan, her voice filled with remorse, apologized to Sensei for being unable to do anything for Ankun, even though she had been there. Sora-chan continued to weep, burying her face in her hands, a painful reminder that while one victim had been returned safely, the ordeal was far from over. The male student confirmed the grim truth. Despite Sora-chan's return, they still had no information regarding Fumi's brother's whereabouts, leaving Fumi to absorb the devastating news. Her anguish was palpable, but the world continued its search. A police officer informed Sensei that the police were actively searching for Ayuma-kun. Sensei reflected that he used to believe he only had to wait for events to unfold. His words prompted Mitsuha, who now wore an eye patch, to question what he meant by used to. Meanwhile, Fumi remained silent, her head bowed in distress. Sensei glanced at her, knowing the weight of the situation. He then addressed her, asking if she was all right, while Mitsuha and Sora-chan looked on with concern, urging her to reveal what she had been told. She finally spoke, relaying Sora-chan's horrifying account. She had been locked up and assaulted by Fumi's own brother. A flashback image showed Sora-chan tied up and distressed in a dark, abandoned space. The revelation struck her with immense shock, her eyes wide with disbelief. Sora-chan, tears streaming down her face, apologized profusely, explaining that she had been too scared to tell the police the full truth when they first found her after she managed to escape. Sensei added to the grim picture, mentioning that he had heard from people at the theater that some individuals seemed very suspicious when they walked by. Fumi, still reeling, questioned if it was truly possible her brother could have done such a thing. Mitsuha, her face etched with worry, pressed further, asking about Fumi's brother's current whereabouts. Sora-chan, looking down, admitted that she had been worried and had asked Fumi again, and Fumi had finally told her the truth. Sensei concluded the conversation, stating that they still did not know where Ayuma-kun was, and urged the two girls to inform him if they discovered anything. Sora-chan, head bowed, struggles with the weight of her recent confession, while Mitsuha stands beside her, her expression grim, unable to fully process the implications of Sora-chan's words. The gravity of the situation hangs heavy between them. As the two girls begin to walk away, a new figure, Fumi, her eye bandaged, approaches them from behind, calling out to them. Fumi confronts Sora-chan directly, her voice filled with disbelief and a hint of desperation, questioning the truth of what she has heard. She struggles to accept the possibility that such events could have transpired. Her hand trembling uncontrollably, Fumi demands to know why Sora-chan is lying about her brother, insisting that it must be a falsehood. Overwhelmed, Sora-chan turns and flees, prompting Mitsuha to immediately give chase, calling out to her. Mitsuha, catching up to Fumi, looks at her with a serious expression, asking for clarification on her accusations. Sora-chan, her hand covering her mouth in distress, struggles to respond. Fumi, however, asserts with conviction that she witnessed Sora-chan and her brother together in a taxi, implying a different version of events. Fumi's face contorts in anguish, her fists clenched tightly, as she vehemently denies Sora-chan's claims, stating she cannot believe them to be true. She recalls her brother's pale appearance, suggesting he was not well. Still walking, Fumi grabs Sora-chan's arm, her voice pleading as she implores her to reveal the truth, while Mitsuha walks beside them, observing the tense exchange. Fumi, her grip firm, begins to run, pulling Sora-chan along with her, while Mitsuha follows closely behind, her expression concerned. As they continue to move, Fumi turns to Sora-chan, her voice filled with a desperate demand, insisting that Sora-chan return her brother to her. She questioned if Mitsuha believed the book was connected to the recent incidents. Mitsuha replied that the teacher had mentioned something to Fumi-chan. Fumi reacted with a surprised huh, and wondered why Mitsuha was bringing up such a topic at that moment. Mitsuha continued, explaining that historical accounts of crimes possessed a certain beauty and a compelling story, unlike mere accidents. She found such narratives utterly fascinating. As the conversation deepened, Mitsuha turned her gaze to Sora-chan, directly asking if she truly desired Fumi's brother back. Meanwhile, Fumi herself stood nearby, a chilling, fearless, and cruel smile spreading across her face. A disembodied voice echoed through the quiet, asking a chilling question. Did someone desire their brother's return? Moments later, a young woman with short, light-colored hair appeared, her expression enigmatic as she offered to reveal the truth behind the disappearances. Across from her, Fumi's eyes widened in horror, realizing the young woman's involvement. She immediately accused her, declaring that she knew she was behind everything. Fumi continued her confrontation, explaining that she had always found her actions strange, constantly inviting her brother over and taking his belongings, suggesting a deeper, more sinister motive than simple affection. The young woman, however, merely smiled, her gaze suggesting a possessive claim over Fumi's brother, as if she owned him. Turning slightly, she acknowledged Fumi's observation with a casual remark, confirming that she had indeed noticed her actions. Her gaze then sharpened, and she directly questioned Fumi, asking if she truly loved her brother. Fumi, taken aback, quickly affirmed her love, emphasizing their familial bond. The young woman listened intently. With a wide, almost unsettling smile, she then declared her own love for Unukun, stating it was just like family. But her final, lingering word left an ominous implication. She continued to speak of her possessive desires, questioning if Fumi would truly want others to see Imukun smiling or laughing, or if she would prefer him to eat only her own cooking, just like family. Her expression hardened, and she declared with an intense glare that she did not want anyone to get close to Imukun. Mitsuha, listening intently, shivered as she realized the implication of Sora-chan's words, concluding that this was why she had kidnapped him. She internally acknowledged the immense danger this person posed. Still reeling from the revelation, Mitsuha pressed further, asking if Sora-chan was also responsible for the other disappearances. A sinister smile spread across Sora-chan's face as she considered the accusation of bullying Ayumukun. She then chillingly declared that if it truly was her, she would simply say she had done the right thing by killing those who deserved it. Disturbed by the confession, Mitsuha turned away, urging Fumi to go find the teacher. But Sora-chan interrupted her, holding up a phone displaying a picture of Ayumu. She revealed that she had instructed some obedient children to keep an eye on him, and ominously warned Mitsuha that if she spoke to anyone else about this, she could say goodbye to Ayumukun. Fumi, who had been listening in horror, finally found her voice, her face pale with terror as she asked if Sora-chan intended to kill her brother. Sora-chan acknowledged Fumi's question, praising her for being spot on. With a chilling, deranged smile, her eyes wide and unsettling, she confirmed her intent. She was indeed going to kill him, so they could be together forever. She cried out, her voice filled with desperation, insisting that such an act was impossible, that it could not be done. Fumi, hearing the chilling declaration, could only utter Sora-chan's name, her own voice barely a whisper. With a chilling calm, Sora-chan's voice then offered a twisted proposition, asking if Fumi would accept a chance. Her presence felt utterly forbidding. She leaned in closer to Fumi, a sinister smile playing on her lips, and commanded her to come along, promising that she would then be allowed to see her brother. Fumi, her face etched with sorrow, apologized to Mitsuha, while Sora-chan, looking away, declared that Mitsuha had no part in this dangerous affair and could not come with them. Mitsuha, however, warned Fumi that it was too dangerous to go. Mitsuha, her eyes wide with alarm, cried out Fumi's name, a desperate plea escaping her lips. As Mitsuha stood startled, Fumi turned back, her expression resolute, and shouted for Mitsuha not to follow them. Mitsuha reached out a trembling hand, a silent plea to stop them, but Fumi and Sora-chan continued to walk away into the distance. That day, despite her desperate efforts, Mitsuha was unable to catch up to them. The city streets stretched out, empty and indifferent, as Mitsuha realized she had taken too long. Afterwards, she kept searching for Fumi, but to no avail. A lone figure stood amidst a city engulfed in flames, its silhouette stark against the inferno. Yet, somehow she survived. It took her a few days to awaken in a hospital bed, where another girl sat vigil beside her. As she slowly regained consciousness, her mind felt utterly blank, but the other girl explained that when she came to, everything was already on fire. She struggled to recall the events, asking what had happened after the fire, her brow furrowed in confusion. The girl with the eye patch, Mitsuha, looked at her with a grave expression, urging her to stay calm and listen to what she was about to reveal. Her hands instinctively gripped the hospital blanket, a silent testament to the dread building within her. She could only utter a disbelieving "no way" as the words began to sink in. Mitsuha, her voice heavy with sorrow, confirmed the worst. Her brother had died, and the very next day, her parents perished in a fire while they slept. Her entire family was gone. Overwhelmed by the crushing weight of the truth, she tried to leap from the bed, a desperate attempt to escape the unbearable reality. Mitsuha reached out, trying to hold her back. Mitsuha pleaded with her to wait, reminding her that they still had no idea who was responsible for such a heinous act. Mitsuha's attempts to console Fumi were met with a torrent of grief and anger. Fumi, her face contorted in anguish, cried out that the entire tragedy was Sora's fault. She continued, her voice breaking, insisting that this was no mere coincidence, nor was it something Sora had planned. Fumi's tears streamed down her face as she questioned Mitsuha, asking if she truly expected her to remain in the hospital, utterly helpless. Overwhelmed by the news and her own powerlessness, Fumi sat up in the hospital bed, clutching her chest, her body racked with sobs. Mitsuha, witnessing Fumi's profound despair, embraced her tightly, a silent thought passing through her mind. She had been unable to do anything for Fumi. Elsewhere, Fumi's brother confronted Mitsuha, his gaze intense as he echoed her sentiment, acknowledging that indeed, nothing could have been done. He then pressed Mitsuha, realizing that Fumi must have experienced something similar in her past, and that Mitsuha believed Sora-chan was somehow connected to Tsubasa-chan. Mitsuha, her expression grim, confirmed his suspicions, revealing that Sora-chan had also been involved in a past event. As Fumi's brother listened, a chilling memory or vision surfaced. Sora-chan, lying lifeless on the ground, was declared found dead. With the weight of these revelations, Mitsuha turned and walked away, her silhouette disappearing into the darkness of the hallway. Her garment slipped from her shoulders, revealing the delicate curve of her back as she stood in a dimly lit room. A memory surfaced, a fleeting image of a happier time. Fumi's brother, Mitsuha, and Sora-chan, all smiling brightly together. The memory brought a pang of sorrow, and Fumi, her face obscured by her hair and hand, clutched a small photograph. Sora, what a nostalgic name, she murmured, a wistful tone in her voice. Her finger traced words across the pages of an open book, seeking answers, or perhaps just distraction. A deep tension settled within her, manifesting as her hand clenched tightly, her knuckles white with strain. She knelt on the cold, patterned floor, gazing up at the starry expanse visible through the high windows. Soon, Susukuin. Soon, she whispered, a promise or a threat hanging in the air. Sumi Mitsuha's face was etched with sorrow, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek as she recalled a painful memory. At that time, Sora-chan was also involved. Her memory shifted to a grim scene in the pouring rain, where a body lay lifeless, declared found dead. Fumi's brother, Sensei, and Mitsuha herself stood over the tragic sight, their expressions heavy with despair. As the recollection continued, Mitsuha listened intently to Fumi's brother, who explained that their initial understanding of the situation had been flawed. Despite the belief that the original culprit had perished, the brutal murders persisted. The shadowy figure of the girl nobody knows continued her deadly spree, proving she was still very much alive. Mitsuha's eye widened in shock, a bead of sweat forming on her brow, as he questioned if the horrific incidents had truly continued. In a classroom setting, he elaborated, stating that even after a devastating fire, students kept vanishing, one after another, adding to the growing terror. A grim collage of photographs depicted the escalating horror, revealing that the initial incident involving Fumi's brother had been overshadowed and buried beneath countless other murders, all attributed to the enigmatic girl nobody knows. Fumi, Mitsuha, and Fumi's brother stood together, their faces etched with a mixture of guilt and apprehension, as they recounted how they had informed the police that Sora was behind all the atrocities. Their accusation ultimately led to the abrupt conclusion of the investigation, as a girl, whose silhouette stood framed in a doorway, surrendered herself as the confessed culprit. Her surrender, much like the Tsubasa-chan incident, felt like a repeat of past events, a chilling echo of someone turning themselves in. She then suggested that the only logical explanation was that she had been set up as a false culprit, prepared by Sora herself. Sumi Mitsuha, however, remained unconvinced, feeling strongly that there was something more sinister at play behind the entire incident. She elaborated, explaining that someone was now reenacting the crimes previously committed by the girl nobody knows, and this time, the Tsubasa-chan incident was the target. These reenactments included pushing people under trains and hangings, grim echoes of the past. As Tsurumi Mitsuha and Fumi examined a map, they confirmed that the locations and methods matched what had been meticulously recorded. She further revealed that Tsubasa-chan had been registered on a platform called Anonymous, and their investigation had begun after receiving a crucial tip from Mirai-kun. Both Fumi and Tsurumi Mitsuha had then begun searching Anonymous for the individuals involved, with Fumi pretending to be a male to look for the girl nobody knows, while Tsurumi Mitsuha focused on finding Susuka. She explained to Kokoshu Fumi's brother that this was precisely why he had seen her on Anonymous earlier. Mirai-kun then interjected, reminding him that it was he who had brought him to Fumi, implying he should already be aware of the subsequent events. He pondered Mirai's words, a dawning realization crossing his face as he understood the implications of what had been said. As he processed this, Mitsuha revealed a shocking truth. They were responsible for staging the gruesome blood writing and the cookies, directly implicating themselves in the Tsubasa-chan incident. His eyes widened in disbelief, unable to comprehend the confession he had just heard. She continued, explaining that their intention was to impersonate Tsubasa-chan, using the stage scene as a trap to draw out the real culprit. However, she admitted, their plan had gone awry, leading to an unforeseen and unexpected turn of events. He looked at her, a worried expression on his face, and questioned if she was referring to Shiki-san. Mitsuha elaborated, revealing that Shiiki had intervened, attacking Mirai and swapping the cookies for a phone, a move designed to cast suspicion upon Fumi. She confessed they had not anticipated Shiiki would act at that precise moment. Mitsuha clarified that the message sent was not from them, but from Shiiki. This revelation caused him to look at his phone, a new question forming in his mind about the true origin of the message on Mirai's device. A memory surfaced, or perhaps a new understanding, as he declared that a previous statement was a lie. Mitsuha then connected this to Shiiki's claim that Kokoshu-san had been rummaging through Mirai's pockets, implying that too was a fabrication. A troubled expression settled on his face as he grappled with the implications, wondering why Shiiki-san would orchestrate such a deceptive scheme. He listened intently as Mitsuha explained that they still did not know why Shiiki had attacked Mirai or why she was attempting to frame them. She continued, asserting that as one of Sora's classmates, Shiiki was undoubtedly connected to the Tsubasa-chan incident. His expression tightened, a silent acknowledgement of the deepening complexity of the situation. He let out a dry, humorless laugh, realizing he had indeed found himself in a terrible predicament. Mitsuha then turned her gaze to him, asking if he still believed he was merely an innocent bystander, dragged into this mess. Her tone shifted, declaring that she had revealed much already, and now it was his turn to contribute. He looked up, confusion clouding his features, and asked what exactly she meant. Mitsuha then gestured towards a distinctively decorated book, explaining it was a cherished possession of Fumi's, given to her by someone. She continued, revealing that the same individual had crafted a map and carefully slipped it inside the very pages of that book. Mitsuha's expression grew somber as she trailed off, the unspoken implication hanging heavy in the air. Fumi, holding open a book, confronted her brother, Sosuke, her voice laced with a mix of sorrow and accusation. Sosuke-kun, she began, her gaze unwavering. It was you, wasn't it? His eyes widened in a silent admission, betraying a hidden truth. A young man, his face obscured by shadow, meticulously draws a complex map, preparing to slip it discreetly inside a book. Moments later, a girl with short, light hair walks with a bright smile, seemingly unaware of the map's significance or the events it might foreshadow. Elsewhere, a woman with long, dark hair confronts someone, her expression a mix of disbelief and accusation, demanding to know if it wasn't Sasuke who was involved. He recoils, his eyes wide with shock and confusion, questioning why he would ever do such a thing to Kokushu-san. She stands firm, her gaze unwavering, stating that she had heard all about him from Fumi and that he was undoubtedly by her side at the time, urging him not to play dumb about the situation. He looks at her, his expression a mix of confusion and desperation, insisting that what she suggests is utterly impossible. He then reveals the profound reason for his impossibility. He was in a coma. He continues, his face etched with the memory of a truly serious accident that had befallen him. He recalls playing at a construction site when some steel beams fell on him, an event that occurred right around the time of the incident she had told him about. He had been hospitalized throughout middle school because of a severe accident, but a passerby had called an ambulance, ensuring his survival. The memory of blood splattered on the ground, with Fumi lying injured, remained vivid. Despite this, he insisted he was not merely making excuses. He admitted he did not remember much from that time, but maintained there was no way he could have given Kokushu a book, implying his physical state would have prevented it. Kokushu rustled, seemingly unconvinced. Kokushu then produced a photograph, flipping it open and instructing him to examine it closely. The photo revealed a younger version of himself, Fumi, and two other students, all smiling brightly and making peace signs. Kokushu pointed to the image, asserting that the person in the photograph was undeniably him. He stared at the image, his eyes wide with shock and confusion, a single word escaping his lips. This, still holding the incriminating photo, he conceded that the person in it did indeed resemble him, but his expression remained one of profound disbelief and uncertainty. His gaze was fixed, his brow furrowed, as if struggling to reconcile the image with his own fractured memories. Kokushu pressed him further, her voice firm, stating that Fumi herself had confirmed the photo was of him and that there was no doubt about their outing. She demanded he tell her the truth. Overwhelmed, he clutched his head, screaming in terror and denial, repeating that it couldn't be true. Above him, a horrifying, fragmented image of Fumi, bloody and reaching out, seemed to materialize, intensifying his fear. The world around him distorted into static, and he was seen lying in a bed, a faint, distant voice calling his name, as if waking from a nightmare or a profound mental collapse. He found himself in a vivid memory or dream, as a familiar voice called out his name. A young man with light hair, Ayumu, stood in a doorway, waving cheerfully and exclaiming that it had been a long time since they last met. Within this same recollection, he observed Fumi and another girl with long dark hair, Shiki-san, who smiled warmly as she held his hand. His attention then shifted to a detailed map spread before him, his gaze intently tracing its lines as if planning a complex route. Shiki-san, her smile still bright, leaned in to praise him, remarking on the amazing ingenuity of his plans. Suddenly, the scene changed, and he stood holding a coiled rope, while Ayumu, looking visibly concerned, questioned his intentions. Ayumu's concern escalated into an urgent plea, his voice filled with panic as he repeatedly called out Sasuke's name, desperately telling him to stop. The memory then dissolved into a chaotic, disorienting view of industrial structures, twisting and turning as if in freefall or collapse. From below, he looked up at a figure standing on a high platform, while another voice, perhaps Ayumu's, called out to him, asking if he was all right, his own breath coming in ragged gasps. He jolted, clutching his head, the vivid dream or memory fading as he questioned their authenticity, wondering if they were truly his own recollections. Still disoriented, he pondered the face of Shiki-san he had just seen in his memories, a profound confusion washing over him as he wondered why she appeared there, implicitly drawing a connection to Kokushu-san. A class picture, perhaps from a distant past, showed a group of girls, some with their faces obscured, while one in the center offered a faint, unsettling smile. A voice declared that he should know her from back then. As the image lingered in his mind, a voice cut through his confusion, identifying the girl as Shiki-saku. Sasuke, his eyes wide with disbelief, demanded to know what she meant. Her gaze, sharp and unwavering, met his bewildered expression, her face betraying a hint of concern beneath the calm demeanor. She continued, her words painting a grim picture of the past, revealing that Shiiki was one of the perpetrators who had posed as a victim in the incident of the girl nobody knew. A subtle, almost predatory smile played on her lips as she delivered the damning revelation, her eyes glinting with a knowing intensity.